let's call the meeting to order for the Board of Finance on February 9th, 2023. Welcome, everyone. First of all, I'd like to seat Lisa for Christina Milhouse, who's absent tonight. I move to seat her for that opening. Do I have a second?
Second.
Take your pick. Thanks, Lisa. First thing is,
Wait a minute.
Oh.
Move to see
We
Jim
would see-
for, move to see Jim for Jeff.
second. Sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Welcome, Jim. Thank you. We're going to dispense with the approval of minutes. We'll catch that the next time. So we're up to present to speak. Anyone here who would like to speak? Ralph Toulis.
Ralph Toulis, 47 Village Hill Road. I rise to offer input to this board on an item on tonight's agenda, specifically the school building project. While I'm a member of SBC and the SBC Finance Subcommittee, tonight I speak as a third-generation Wellington resident and taxpayer. I am not speaking for the school building committee. I enthusiastically support efforts to advance our school facilities and technologies forward, as the new buzz phrase 21st century school suggests. I am not yet convinced that this is the way forward for our small town. The proposed project, as referred to the Board of Selectmen, is an extremely costly project for our small town. As the SBC chairperson has said, this project will have an effect on this town for decades into the future. School supporters will insist this can only be positive. I'm not so sure. It is a vastly expensive undertaking for taxpayers, which will affect the town's budget for more than 20 years. This board is tasked with preparing a town budget. That budget must fully recognize our resources and our residents' ability to contribute to that budget. Just because a small fraction of our town has an express support for and a willingness to endure the expense of this project does not outweigh consideration for those who may not be as well positioned to do so. The board must consider this fact. Just the school project alone may project a 40% mill rate increase in 3 years and an almost 50% increase in 7. This project is only for the school, or this projection is only for the school and does not include consideration of other projects discussed by the CIP committee last night. Many newer residents readily admit that they moved here because of the rural character and ambiance, as well as the reasonable property tax burden. School supporters have suggested we need the new school so people will want to move here. Those of you on this board should understand that residential properties do not provide adequate revenue to cover the costs of educating their children for 10 years. Will a new school and a mill rate substantially higher than surrounding towns really entice people and businesses to move here? What would really benefit the town's budget is an expansion, not an increase, of our grand list. But we loathe the idea of major commercial or industrial development. I would like to request that this board fully examine the long-term, which is roughly 23 years, effect that this and other projects will have on our budget and mill rate over the next 2 decades. Once this board has fully wrapped your heads around the cost associated with these projects, I believe it would be wise and prudent to hold a public hearing before the town meeting that will move the school project to referendum. I would ask that this board be able to fully explain to the taxpayers in this public hearing the real projected cost of a new school and all other pending projects, both in the near and long term. Town budget may not be 100% finished, but you folks need to be able to recognize and explain the costs associated with known future projects before finalizing the budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you leave a copy?
That was my question.
Okay,
Or I can email it, whichever.
That was,
email it would be great.
Okay, I'll do that.
Thank you. Anyone else present to speak online or
Yeah,
in
Nick
person?
Tella online.
Okay, why can't we see them?
I don't know.
Nick?
oh,
Yeah.
that-
Yeah, Nick Keller. Oh, am I
There we
skipping
go.
over somebody?
We're just trying to actually see
click on it.
faces,
Okay.
maybe on participants there. Yeah. But go ahead.
All right. So Nick Teller, 49 Myrtle. I think what Ralph had to say was spot on. I love his comments there. Just, want to let you guys know that the school building committee still has not fulfilled their charge in identifying, which is in section D10, identifying potential future uses of the two current school buildings. Once they do identify the potential future uses of those schools, we're going to end up knowing the actual cost, or at least being closer to the actual cost of either maybe 28.6 or $34.7 million. So I think that it'd be wise for you guys to inform them, hey, before we start pushing this through, let's know the actual cost of what's going to be coming down the pipeline here. And just listening to other CIP meetings and BOS meetings and just hearing their budget proposals and such, for the most part, everything's up, which is expected. And I just wanted to see if you guys, not identifying what the new mill rate would be, but just a yes or no, if you guys anticipate, just based off of our expenses going into next year, if there will be a mill rate increase. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone in the room who'd like to speak? Some of you will be speaking, but is there anyone else who wants to comment?
Jeff just walked in, so
Oh, yes, but I think we can leave Jim seated
Jim seated for,
Jim Marshall, and
There
that
we
way we
go.
could just keep calling people Jim.
yeah.
Is that okay?
Excellent.
Is that okay with you, Jim? Welcome, Jeff.
I think I understood that. I'm still seated.
You're still
Yes.
seated probably until Jim Marshall joins us.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, well, let's get right to the agenda then. Stu, do you want to talk about emergency preparedness? I think I believe we, do you all have that in your packet?
I think Donna said she included it, but it's no change over the last few years.
Yeah, I think we were using last year's as a guideline.
And typically we get 50% reimbursement from emergency management performance grant, it's administered by the state using some federal money. A lot of it is, planning. Just this week, we did several hours of meeting about doing a multi-jurisdictional shelter, an effort so that Wellington won't have to do an overnight shelter, but we'll do one, probably in Mansfield, that'll do Mansfield, Wellington, Coventry, and Ashford together.
Mhm.
We're redrafting that, it's gonna be reviewed by the lawyers for Homeland Security, and then brought to the CEOs in a lot of meetings with that. There's typically a biannual review of the local emergency operations plan that's underway. We have usually monthly meetings with the other emergency management directors in Northeast Connecticut, and kind of what's going on there, both town by town and regional. Those are the sort of things that are going on.
Thank you. Did you have this, Sam? It's just one sheet and it says Emergency Preparedness Fund 07 on the top. If you want to try to share it, we're going to be moving on pretty fast though. If you, I just want to point out for the board and those present who are interested that the Board of Finance wanted that fund to reach, a working balance of 4,000. It's at 3,964, pretty
So
darn
there are
close.
two items on my agenda. One was the emergency manager
Okay.
stipend.
Right.
I pay for all my own gas and travel and that sort of thing. Just-
Right, we were gonna get to that. I just wanted
And
before
I
we
thought that
wrap
was the
this.
first one we're talking about. The second one
Yeah.
was money that was derived from one of the storms many years ago where FEMA reimbursed volunteer labor for running the shelter, but it kind of kept that in a fund. The last 2 years, the CERT team, not just in Wellington, but almost all Northeast Connecticut, the CERT teams have become inactive with COVID and such, and the only activities with the Medical Reserve Corps, specifically for medically trained people for doing some of the COVID clinics and such. There's a move afoot recently to start a regional CERT team with those same 4 towns I talked about for the sheltering. And we hope to see some flyers coming out shortly that'll open that up again and try to reinvigorate the CERT team for some training, as well as, what activities we can use them for. This is the hardest problem, is keeping them engaged. If we had storms, 2-3 times a year, it'd all be good. Everybody would have their skills up and feel good about what they're doing. But when you go from having 1 or 2 a year to 0 for 5 or 6 years, then it's okay, what can we use them for? And so the thought is to combine that with some shelter management training. So if the shelter does need to be opened up, there's going to be some people that are pre-trained in that. That fund just kind of sits as is. And, if we were to get reimbursement from FEMA for something, based on some volunteer labor, money would go back into that. And there may be some slight withdrawals from that for doing the CERT team training, assuming we can get some people to go into that. So we're not looking for any funds any more money to go into that fund just now. And we may use a little bit of it for some of the CERT training. There is state money available for the CERT training, but it doesn't necessarily cover 100% of the cost for doing that.
Yeah, and we see that you over time have done some other kind of more unusual emergency needs during COVID, with, using it for the RV and stuff like that. So it's good to see that.
Yep, so it's good to have
It's
that.
not always gonna be a 10-day October storm, right?
Nope.
Snowstorm.
You never know what's coming, so you kind of have to plan for a little bit of everything and go from there.
And then the stipend, the only thing I'd ask about that is are you ready to go to that? I'm sorry. Did you?
Yeah,
say-
that's
Oh, okay. So that's the other sheet, you all, that's just very brief. It's got like that, just. Is the generator, there's no expense in 22 as yet, or because you cut it off at December 31st, you don't have any reason?
Maybe Eric can talk about this more, or Phil Stevens. So the generator maintenance for years was done by Hall School. The funding for it was a mix of some stuff, but back then you did get some FEMA funds directly to help with that generator, and that's what we did. And for many, many years, the school absorbed the annual expense of changing oil and that sort of thing. And they also were in a program with Eversource that if Eversource ran out of electricity, Hall School would shed their load, so to speak. They would switch over to the generator, and the money they saved on their electric bill compensated for any maintenance on the generator. With some staffing changes at the school primarily, and Eversource really not doing that program too much anymore. Somehow the maintenance for the generator got put into my account. I had no prior knowledge of it. I don't know what the expenses are. Typically, nothing big is broken on it, so usually it's in the hundreds of dollars a year and not thousands. Someday something big may break on that, and then we'll have to go look for some money to blow up something on the thing that repair within the thousands. We may have to find some money for it, but I think there's enough park in there now for just doing the routine maintenance and help.
Okay,
Can I go back one step?
sure.
You were talking about the shelter, 4-town shelter, 5-town shelter?
So yeah, 4 towns.
4-town, and it'll be in Mansfield?
Yes.
Are we gonna see an expense for that coming down the road, or is that expense gonna be borne by the feds or the state?
So in a routine basis, there should be no expense in terms of if there's no emergencies happening. This is simply a planning document that talks about sharing animal control officers. Shelters are required to take animals more or less. There's some limits there, but if you need to go to the shelter and you want to bring your dog, you have to have a place to put the dog, and the animal control officers are hopefully from each of the towns will contribute to staffing it, kind of thing. Same with volunteers for the shelter itself, and usually there's some paperwork involved in processing, food service, that sort of thing. Again, try to be shared by all the towns, so, you know, maybe Monday, the Mansfield people will do the cooking, and maybe Tuesday, the Wellington cafeteria crew can go over there and help, that sort of thing. That's the basis behind that. In a qualified event, it has to fall under both countywide dollar limits has to be high enough, as well as statewide. If it's a declared emergency by FEMA, or presidential declaration, I guess we'll call it, then you can get 75% reimbursement of your expenses. So which isn't 100, but it's, you know, pretty good. Because it's also going to be managed by the Red Cross. The Red Cross has some funding involved in this as well. Will there be some, if we had a shelter running for a week there, would there be some expenses? Probably. But it'd be no worse and probably better than trying to run our own. Example being when we had the shelters open back to storms in 2011 and a few years after that, there's some concern with the staff had of some of the people that were staying there. They were asking for security. We asked the state police, hey, can you come, like, can you position anybody here or anything like that? No, we'll drive to the parking lot once a night, that's all you get. Mansfield has a much bigger police presence, and the idea of doing multi-jurisdictional is you might send somebody over, UConn could send somebody over to put this all under one roof. Mansfield has a lot more town personnel as well to help staff this, where we have, you know, very few paid staff. So that will there ever be some expenses? Yes, could be.
It's not an ongoing budgeting.
You know, just like if we had, you know, the huge hurricane came through, Public Works would have you know, tons of
Right.
overtime, we'd have an expense for that as well.
Right.
But typically on a day-to-day or year-to-year basis, there should be little if any expense for doing the shelter regionally.
All right, so it's more of a planning thing than a build a new building, getting ready.
Oh, no. Right now,
That-
if it's a smaller event, it's
all I
going to
need to
the Mansfield
know.
Community Center. If it's a bigger event, it goes into E.O. Smith.
Okay,
E.O. Smith has the square footage, and they have 2 gymnasiums. They have the ag area that's separate, which contains some of the animals and that sort of thing. So it's generally a better facility with more resources, and we're just starting to work with UConn to try to get them into the fold as well. UConn has 4 full-time emergency management people, but they typically concentrated on their own school population. We're trying to work together to find out, one, is their school population going to come over to the regional shelter, or what resources could they bring to help the regional shelter?
Hey, Stephanie, can I ask a question?
good.
Go ahead.
Oh, so one of the questions I have was, is this in a larger scheme of things with Jensen Hughes, with the mutual aid plan for Connecticut? This town-wide interconnectivity, is it also part of the mutual aid plan from the Department of Public Health?
Not Department of Public Health, it falls under the Department of Emergency Management and Homeland Security. But
right.
More specifically, this is falling under the Red Cross. And what the Red Cross is determined with their limitation of resources, mostly in terms of people, and we saw this when we had our shelters open, they had nobody to send us. They came over with a box of crackers, and you're doing a great job, bye. They can't support, in Eastern regions, 43 communities, they can't support 43 shelters. So the idea is to combine these two, and we're kind of the second one in the state doing this regional multi-jurisdictional sheltering kind of thing, with more to come. Right after we finish our agreement, down in Waterford and New London, they've kind of done something that's applicable to their facility, but next one up is going to be Willimantic. The Willimantic may encompass Chaplin, Franklin, and Lebanon kind of thing. You've got to kind of find out who your partners are, you know, who you want to play with, who has what resources, and that sort of thing. So it's coming, it makes sense.
Right, but Stu, the reason I'm asking is because there's a mutual aid plan that exists today. So if there's an emergency that cuts out power to, there's some kind of weather or tornado or storm that cuts power out all the way from Union all the way down to New London. Us, Willington and Mansfield have this interconnectivity that you're speaking of, which is excellent. But does it retrofit with the other emergency management plans that are going on at the same time for like skilled care, nursing homes? Do they all interconnect? That's the question.
The purpose of the agreement that we're working on right now is simply for the multi-jurisdictional shelter. There are many other mutual aid plans. The fire service and EMS, they have a plan kind of coming through the Connecticut Fire Academy side of things. Public health agencies typically run on their own, but they do have the Medical Reserve Corps to help them out, and they have other health districts. Years ago, Connecticut kind of bundled the health districts together as opposed to each town having their own. And so in our case, where we use the Highlands Health District, and so on and so on. And Public Works has been done. There's nothing in writing yet with Public Works, but it's probably coming, and it has been used. Wellington's one of the first, probably one of the storms where these other towns didn't have as much of an impact. We had Groton up here, Coventry, Lebanon, all coming in with mutual aid, Public Works resources to help open the roads. So all these are, exercised, somewhat on a daily basis. Fire and EMS, they do mutual aid all day long. That's a normal course of practice. Doing the mutual sheltering is something new, but knowing that we're trying to prevent having to open our own shelter, that those that experienced our shelters the last time, it's a lot of work. We had about 80 people in the shelter as a peak, but it was a lot of work for us to try to find volunteers and the people that were staying in the shelter to help. The idea is to have this plan, try to use paid staff when you can. You try to get them pre-trained and keep them, and that sort of thing. If there's a public health emergency, that falls under a different plan. And
No, it's not. Sorry. Got it. Thank you. I just wanted to know the interconnectivity of it, but that's fine. That's great. Thank you. I think it's important.
Thanks, Stu. Are there any other questions online? Jim, did you have anything? Are we good? I'm not hearing from him, so I think so. Anything else you want to say, Stu?
no.
Okay, thank you very much. If you all are okay with it, I think we should hit the fire marshal first and then go into the Willington ones, multiple budgets, and then we'll go from there. Mr. Gantick?
So looking at the first line, the fire marshal salary, you'll see $613 increase or 2.7%. That just covers the salary for the fire marshal. The next line for the deputy fire marshals, their stipend position, the total amount of $1469 is no change this year. Then the last line item, the fire marshal expense, $2750, is a 0% increase for this year. Overall, a 2.3% increase. The fire marshal expenses cover the code books, which have changed recently, so those will have to be purchased, as well as association fees and the town cell phone.
There's only one town cell phone, huh? Okay. Anyone have any questions for the fire marshal? Is this your second year or?
This is my first year as a
First
fire
year.
marshal.
Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Anyone have any questions for the fire marshal budget?
Did you and the deputy switch places?
Yes, we did.
Good. Did you have any questions of us?
Not at this time.
Okay, it's pretty straightforward budget. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So you're on.
Which one would you like first?
Well, let's see.
I don't know what you have.
Anyone got a preference? Well, you go in your preferred order.
All right, if it's okay, we'll do the operating budget first.
Okay.
So in the budget that I sent in, everybody has in front of you, it shows a 17.37% increase. A large part of that is because of an oil tank, or sorry, a propane tank that we need to purchase for the main station. For the last couple of years, we've had a project through CIP to replace the oil tank, convert the building over to propane. By the time the project was done or started, the cost of everything skyrocketed. So originally it was supposed to be 2 or 3 tanks.
So the tank price for a 1,000 gallon tank went from $2,700 approximately 6 months ago to $7,100 in 6 months, well, almost triple the price. Our original plan was to put 3 tanks in there to equate the volume of what we had for oil. And the idea of having more than 1 tank is we need to keep a standby for the generator. The generator also runs on propane, so it isn't like we can draw the tank, the 1 tank that we have down to 20%, because then you only have 1 or 2 day runtime on the generator. So we need that second tank at the very least to keep our capacity up so the generator has the appropriate runtime.
So I did talk to Christina about this, with her being on Board of Finance and CIP, and this being originally a CIP project, as to how to go about it. Would the Board of Finance rather us come in now and ask for that money to do the tank, or to leave it a part of our budget? So it's really up to you guys on how you want to do that 8,000 or 7,100, the price of that tank. I did put it in here just so that we had it as a talking point.
Where does that show up on?
So that it's actually under the first section, heat propane station 13.
Yeah, okay.
So it went from 7,500 up to 75. There is a big unknown here as to what the propane cost is actually going to be for us. We've never run propane there. We can only go off of estimates as to what the suppliers say we may get. But what varies is the generator, how much runtime, stuff like that.
So,
Oh, here we go.
Yeah.
I finally found the line,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yes.
it's up,
So
it's up
last
in
year,
the
we
first
budgeted
section.
75, or sorry, for this year, it's budgeted at $7,500.
It's gone up 10,000, so,
We increased it to the, up 10,000, one, not knowing the cost, the overall cost, and then we need to do that other tank. So we can drop that by 8,000 if we come to you as a separate request to the board, or if you want it to be left in next year's budget.
so I'm having a little trouble following this because I'm kind of going between sheets here, but of the 10, 8,000 is for the generator itself?
No, for the tank, to
the
add
tank.
the second tank,
And that stems from an ARPA project that,
CIP. It was a
CIP project.
Yep.
That totaled how much?
It was $50,000. Once we get the in-ground oil tank removed, we may have $3,000 left, depends on the results of the soil testing and that sort of thing. The tank was 21 years old or so, single wall steel tank, so it needed to come out of the ground. And the price to replace the in-ground tank, and this was a 3-year price, was $110,000. So we appropriate for 50. And 50 would have been fine, except the cost of the tanks tripled in the last 6 months. So that's where we were able to purchase 1 tank instead of the 3 we had originally planned.
So your question is whether to put it in your operating now or?
To either make a special request to the Board of Finance now to come back and do the tank, or leave it in next year's proposed budget.
Same amount either way, right?
Yeah.
It's the same amount
It's the
either
same
way.
either way, it's just how, when do you guys want it? We're trying to,
Well,
Capitalize on current dollars.
yeah, so if you leave it in the operating budget, you capitalize on current.
No,
If you put it into a special, then
right, so I think we've seen costs go up, so I think what he's saying to you, there's a risk of costs increasing,
oh, yeah.
because then you couldn't make the expenditure till after July 1.
right,
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Right, if if you.
No, I missed the July 1 part in my head, sorry.
Talking to you, John.
Because we didn't own our own propane tanks previously, the last couple of years, we've been paying $7 a gallon. And I don't think anybody propane, but the town, I think, you guys might know, I think it's $2 or $2.50 a gallon for propane. So that's what was killing us, that we couldn't switch to propane heat and pay $7 a gallon for propane. That because we didn't have our own tanks, we couldn't put out the propane supply to bid, so to speak. So that's why we had to purchase our own tanks, so we'd save.
Yeah,
So over 3 times the amount for the propane cost.
Do you have any short-term hardship for not having that tank in place yet? Like between now and,
So the only hard part is that it's running the furnace and the generator. So if we do get a storm that we're out of power, we're running both off of one tank, which will kill the supply very quickly. So we noticed in that when we were out for a week, 1 week we drained 3/4 of a tank just on the generator.
Well, when that generator runs, it uses a lot.
Yeah.
Donna,
okay,
do we have enough money to give them the 8,000 now?
I think the best way to do it would be to, it's already an approved LoSiP project. You, Selectman's office can just write to LoSiP, to OPM, and ask to increase the appropriation because of the
Cost
cost
increase.
increase, and I think that OPM will do it.
Beautiful.
how do
As long as the LoSiP plan, your CAP can support that, I think that's a great way to go. The cost you're talking about is installation and
Correct.
cost of tank.
Yes,
Yeah,
when they did
we're
everything,
amenable
they
to
put the
that.
line for the second tank. The line's already there, they just have to move it over to the other tank.
do we have flexibility, or that would just, you know, in the?
Yeah, if Donna says we have the funds, then yeah, I think that's a great way to go.
Okay,
All right, then I have a great news. Already got some money.
Look at that.
you wanted to start with this one?
What's that? I like to start.
What
with
did you just
positive.
say?
All right, so I'm gonna just go through the line items that have an increase, if that's okay.
Sure,
So the top line trash removal, there is a $300 increase. It is a new, it was Willimantic Waste, it's now Casella.
Is that because the company changed hands?
Company changed hands, so we are seeing an increase in price and we are seeing a fuel surcharge. So we went up $300. Building maintenance stayed from the main station stayed the same. For the south station, we added $200. We need to do some painting on the inside of the bays. A lot of the paint is chipping off, so we need to try to fix it up. Moving down to building supplies. We added $300 just because this has gone up on everything. If you look at fiscal year 22-23, we've already spent $1,100. That was halfway through. This was just trying to make sure that we didn't run over. Electricity, there was an increase in both stations. The main station was more than the south station. So Donna, correct me if I'm wrong, the supply is locked in, the delivery is where we see the increase.
so it's the Eversource side?
Yes,
I thought it was the other way around.
and maybe the other, I may have it backwards.
Yeah, because the supply just doubled for
Yes.
homeowners.
We don't have that.
No, we're locked in, but we
All
can,
right,
but they can increase our delivery, is that
yeah,
how I understood it from?
Yes. Yes, that can fluctuate.
It fluctuates on the delivery. So we are trying to do everything we can to minimize that, but
that's,
I mean, the delivery is usually the Eversource side, right?
yeah.
Yes.
Yes, but that's like almost, I mean, it's 13 and 0.3% or something increase.
For commercial, like, we tried trying to find what the rates would be on a commercial building for the rates, and trying to find that is almost impossible.
mhm.
Okay, keep going.
So with, if we move the propane tank out, there's a $2,070 increase for heat, for propane for the main station, and an increase for the oil cost, going off the figures that Donna gave us for what we're hoping to be locked in oil for the south station.
Oil? Oh, sorry.
For station 213. That is still on oil.
Where are you, which figure are you on now?
The bottom line, heat propane station 213.
Okay,
1,000 gallons.
Okay,
Moving down, insurance is up to 30,000. Our insurance, we are locked, or we go out to bid in November, but it's January till December 31st. So 30,000 is our best guess, not knowing what that last 6 months is going to be.
is that something that you ever partner with the town on?
So for our workers' comp, we are partnered. The town is named as a sub, because the vehicles are in the town's name. But we have to carry, it's always been carried as the departments. With just the town named as a rider, right? So that was weird.
There's primarily only two companies that offer insurance packages applicable to fire departments.
Right.
And, I know we put it out to bid periodically, it's just won't get held, we both at the same vendor now. And we try to play one off against the other periodically as we, go up in price, but there's limited, options to pick from. The standard, independent insurance agent isn't writing fire department insurance, if there are other unique, policy set for that.
Okay,
Moving down. Physicals, $1,000. This is for the volunteer side. This is not for the paid side. We are now required, any volunteer that is going to take a fire class, one of the new standards is that they have to go get a physical done.
Hey, Steph, can they expand the viewing screen so it's a lot bigger than what it's at? Can you put it at 100% or something?
Hold on.
yeah. You mean the room scene, you mean the room?
The one that's on the screen for people that are at home. It's too small.
Yeah, give me a second.
And the email came in a way that you can't make it so it's forward. It keeps
Okay.
flipping.
So
Yeah, that's the same
so on the physicals, because that's like 150% increase,
Yep.
Is
So we
that-
were-
and you said it's a volunteer, is it because of this new standard, is that like?
Well, in all honesty, it's because we've grown in volunteers. We've actually taken in more volunteers.
From what to what?
Trevor, help me out here. So what's the total? In the last year, I know we've taken in at least 4 new people. And that's for a volunteer department, that's not bad. Some of them want to go to classes. We've actually, our junior program has grown over the last 2 years. We're up to 4.
Yeah.
4 juniors. All of them have taken classes at the Connecticut Fire Academy. We have one already signed up working on it. That she's going for an advanced class and working on a
Thank
break for that. So that it's not going to be a cost to the fire department. But that one of the new requirements is she's going to have to go have a physical before she can go do that.
Mhm. Okay. Just curious about
Yep.
it.
And the same thing with our paid staff, is the paid staff, any employees, and that's on the.
Every time I try to make it bigger, it goes back to my email.
It goes away.
Yeah,
I didn't think you were fine.
I think you can zoom in on your personal computers.
It
I'm
was
having-
great. It was great.
Okay, I'll go back. Give me a sec, sorry. Oh, no. You're doing great. I'm so scared.
Okay, I think you can keep going
Okay,
while
I'm
we're
sorry.
dealing with the technical difficulties.
Training and education, we went up $100. We are trying some new initiatives, working with Wellington Hill to do some more joint trainings. Last night, we actually had a seminar where we brought in an outside and sponsored with Talent. And opened it up to the county and farther. Working out, or we use Talent's facilities, but we sponsored the program. So we're trying to do more things like that. Office supplies, this was a bigger jump. Just, it's purely because of the cost. If you go back to 2021, 22, we were overspent. We're already at $1,500 for this year. That's why we went up to the 3,000. And it's purely just the cost of what it is to get pens and paper and everything else that we need.
Yeah, it's a little line, you know, but you've got a lot of these, you know, kind of sizable percentage increases.
Yep.
I mean, you know, as you go, did you guys look at some ways to sort of, you
The bulk
know,
of that is.
cut something else or, you
Bulk of
know,
that's for the lease on the copier.
Yeah.
The one we have now, we
okay,
ran the lease out, we extended the lease. Now it's starting to fail and we have a new one coming that we signed months ago. And they're waiting for it to come in. There's 3,000 copiers that we're going to get contracts for, but they've not shown up from overseas to people. So that's the bulk of that. It also includes all our IT expenses as well. So if you need a computer or a wireless network card or something like that, it comes out of that.
And we have tried to limit the amount of paper. We're now, everything for our patient care reporting and stuff like that is all electronic. Rather than having paper sheets that we have to print out every run form, stuff like that, it's all electronic.
okay.
The next one was miscellaneous good and welfare. This is because of some of the volunteer coming in, is to be able to get them some shirts and a coat. There was a $250 increase, but it looks, the percentage looks big because that is such a small one.
Mhm.
Moving down, vehicle maintenance general. There was.
Oh, can I ask you about it, the negative number on radio? Is that because you've got new ones? or-
Yeah, so we've
Okay.
lowered our maintenance because of the ARPA project.
Right,
We're going
okay,
townwide, we're doing a fire department project between both departments, and Public Works has swapped to it. So this, we still have to keep our old radios, so we're hoping not to have to use them as much.
okay, so you're still gonna need some maintenance in there, so that's why you left it.
Yes, that's
As
why we
full
left
as
it in
it
the
is.
top, and we will need some maintenance. There is a, it shows $1,400 for this year. There is some maintenance stuff that we're gonna have to have repaired. It just hasn't happened yet.
Okay. All right, and you were heading down to.
Yeah, vehicle maintenance general.
Right.
This is our hose testing, ladder testing. What else is in there? Hose testing, ladder testing, pump testing, SCBA testing. And we're all of those now where the price is going up and a lot of it is fuel surcharges for them to come out and do it. And if they have to come out multiple days, depending on what they're doing. Hose testing can be 1 or 2 days, depending on how much they can get done in a day. So there is an increase with that.
Yeah, it's a big one.
Yeah,
That's a 50% increase.
but those are all mandatory stuff that we
4,000.
have to do every year.
Okay,
I have a quick question.
go ahead.
Just looking over the trend, seems to be about 11.5, over the last few years in
Yep.
expense. Do you think 12,000 is enough?
We think so off of the price we got for the, like for hose testing, we think we'll be okay. But that's why it went up is the trend of the last 2 years. And it was supposed to go up last year, but that was one of the lines that got cut when we had to go down.
Thank you.
Okay.
Unfortunately, that's one of the areas that we have to do every year. Right? So that's. Vehicle maintenance, ET 113, we had it was budgeted low before, like $3,000. We increased it to 4, the truck is getting older, it's coming off of warranty. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but the stuff that has been repaired, most of it has been under warranty. It's now starting to come off of that.
Okay, because you have in your narrative that it's 3,000. But that's just.
I
a-
apologize.
That's just, okay.
Yep, no, it's a $1,000 increase. So far.
And it's the newest in the.
That is the newest, correct.
Okay.
We left
Jump in if you want.
ET 113, or sorry, ET 213 alone at 3,000. The squad, which is the 2003, which goes to every motor vehicle accident, every fire in town. We had it at 8,390, we lowered it to 8,000, hoping that it will stay there just to try to take money off of something. Service 213, we increased $500 just because again, it's off of warranty, it's starting to age and starting to show Excuse me. Let's see. The ambulances. So the new line item in here this year is ambulance 613. That's the truck that was bought through ARPA.
Oh, before you go to that, could we talk about 513?
Yeah, I was.
Oh, you're gonna go.
together, Yeah, so I had we lowered 513 with the hopes of not running it half of the time, not to have the expenses, and we moved that money to 613.
Are we trading that in?
We're trying to, the 513,
Yeah,
513, we're trying to replace with a new, the hope is to remount it, put a new chassis, cabin chassis under it. But unfortunately, it's so hard to get a chassis right now, we have no idea when that'll actually happen.
because I'm kind of wondering why it's still a 7,500 for maintenance.
Because we're still running it. We still have it.
Just died on the side of the road.
Yeah, it just died on the side of the road last week, so we are still running it. We can't. Having the second ambulance has already proven that we haven't been out of service, with the exception of if there was a staffing issue, it was short, like a shortage, somebody called out last minute. Or yesterday it was out of service for an hour because one was at the dealership and the other one needed an oil change, so they ran it for oil change. But unlike before, where we would be out of service for a week, we're now in service 98% of the time, being able to generate the revenue. And if we have volunteers around, we've actually been able to get the second ambulance out when it's in service or there to generate a little extra, not much, but to get a couple extra calls. Peter, I think.
This is not so much a budget question, it's just a curiosity question. What's the difference between a rescue and an ambulance? One's R. and
Yeah,
one's
so
an A.
rescue is what it used to be called, and it's just how the line item was.
Okay.
Dispatch, yeah, it was a rescue by.
Now it's an ambulance?
Then they switched to the nomenclature of how it's signed on as an ambulance.
Beautiful, thank you.
The chart of accounts reflects the old name for 513 is for decades, the county called them rescues,
Got it.
and then they made a move to call them ambulances.
Just because we need.
A little clarity, that, you know, you said the rescue trucks come, you kind of have to guess, well, was that an ambulance? And
Got it.
It started with 5 or 6 or 7, it did, and with the 1 or 2 or 3, it wasn't, so it's a lot clearer when you call it ambulance.
Beautiful.
And just give us an update on when the new one will be in.
We don't know.
So is
So-
that hitting in 23, 24 then?
It's in right now. It's supposed to be in right now.
It's in now, but I mean, in reality, what will happen?
So what we're being told
Yes.
2 years. To get a chassis, by the dealers. The hard part we're having is we can't even place an order because to go out to leasing, we need we need a date, a delivery date, and a VIN number. And we can't get either. And we can't get a dealership to even. We have one that says, yeah, we might be able to get you something, but we're not getting you a delivery date or a VIN. So we're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Mhm.
Can I interrupt what James Marshall just signed on?
Okay, Jim, welcome aboard.
Other Jim?
Or do you
And
wanna
Jim,
specify?
is that Jim Marshall, welcome aboard, and Jim McGilligan, thank you for your service.
Understood. I'll still be available.
Well, yeah, and then pipe up with questions. Anything else? That's it, okay.
So the new, as far as getting the new ambulance, we don't know when that'll happen. We have no idea. I can't even project it. We're hoping when they finally open the orders again, if the trend continues, they're not gonna open until sometime in the summer or early fall. We'll have a better idea by then. But I think it's-
So the ARPA thing paid off, huh?
it did.
Already?
It did greatly. Anybody that didn't know, we were able to buy a 2011 truck out of Barnstead, New Hampshire.
In really cool green?
What's that?
In really cool green?
It is green. It is Public Works green. It matches our Public Works trucks pretty good. So, but it was a very well taken care of truck. It's proven it's done all right, knock on wood.
Okay,
I think that was it for apparatus, unless anybody had any questions about apparatus.
I don't think so. I think
Okay,
you can
moving
go
on
on
to
to,
protective clothing maintenance, there was no change. protective clothing purchase, there's a $1,200 increase. It's now about $5,000 or $5,200 for one set of gear. So the 13,500 gives us so that we can purchase 2 sets of gear and some boots and a couple helmets. One of the new cancer-related items coming out is they're going to start pushing that after every fire, you're supposed to decon your gear, which means it has to be washed. And we have to, as fire departments are going to have to generate policies and procedures of how that's all done. One of the things that we have to do with our paid staff, because they work 24-hour shifts, is they need to have a second set of gear. Because technically, we're not supposed to let them, if they go into a fire, they do a vehicle fire, they do a woodlands fire, they're not supposed to put that gear back on until it's washed. But if they're working a 24-hour shift, they can't do that. So they're having to put dirty gear back on and re-expose themselves. We are working on grant opportunities and applying for a grant to purchase new sets of gear. Although, like everybody knows, grants are very competitive right now. And we have no idea whether we'll get it or not. We won't know if we get it next year.
Could be a year from now.
Could be a year from now, before we actually see or hear whether we'll get the grant. Radio purchases, we did drop $1,500 because of the new stuff that we, through ARPA, that we are purchasing. There are some other stuff that we need to purchase to outfit the rest of the radio equipment at the South Station, Station 213, and stuff like that. Pagers. Those are different ones. Pagers, we left at 500. Fire equipment purchases, we did.
Could I just ask you, I mean, given that there's like more ups and downs in the budget,
Yep.
is that something you could forego, that 3,000 that's still in there? I mean, I would leave the fund open, but I mean, is that as crucial?
$1,500.
I got 500, I'm looking at 500, or.
I dropped it 1,500 to purchase radio.
Right, no, that's what I'm looking at is the whole
To drop
budget.
it
If
to
they've got
zero
all
altogether. I don't know if I'd
radios.
be able to drop it all the way to zero, because there are some things that we have to buy. But we could maybe come down a little bit.
Okay,
Fire equipment, again, we have to, there's some of our, thermal imagers, thank you. There's at least one thermal imager that we have to replace. And then we have to purchase another gas meter. That's why there is a little bit of an increase into the fire code.
okay,
So, and I know it, so with the revised, if we take the $8,000 off, this budget is $170,410.
Which comes out to about.
12%. 12% increase. What I would like to say is that we did do some statistics for towns like Wellington. So Lisbon, who is ideally identical to Wellington of how it's operated, population size, call size. Their budget is about $198,400. You go over to Stafford, who does 1,000 calls for just fire departments. And they don't have an ambulance involved, it's strictly fire, they can go to medical calls, but have no ambulance. Both departments over there are well over $200,000 a piece for their operating budgets. Todd and I both come in as reasonable as we can. We do talk about our budgets to know where we're both at and where we can try to lower where we can if they're gonna have an increase or we're gonna have an increase. But a lot of these is fixed cost stuff that there's no thrills of us going out and just buying stuff that we want.
okay, well, if you can look at that line on the radio, since you got some, that would be helpful.
What's the deal with pagers these days? I mean, it seems like
Yeah.
a technology that's gone past.
It
It
really
isn't,
does.
because pagers are, so we are actually going to invest in 800 pagers, all to go off the state system.
So you can get your tone.
Yeah, and it's much, much better. We still have to rely on pagers at night for the volunteers, because I don't know about some of these people, I don't wake up to a cell phone unless it's ringing or somebody's calling. It just doesn't happen. I need the physical pager to wake me up. I listen to that thing all day long. When I go to sleep,
I can sleep through a radio call.
Yes.
Hey, Steph, I have a question. Can I ask one?
Sure, Lisa.
All right. Thanks for going through the budget. What the concern that I have is that this year, you're at $152,000 budget, and you've only expended a third of it, correct? Am I reading that correctly? 52,065, not including the last 6 weeks?
Correct. But most of our expenditures, our highest amount of expenditures come out between now and June. And that's been the trend of with the fire budgets.
But you have line items where you're still, so you're telling me that from now until June, you're gonna spend 2/3 of the budget?
Yeah, easily.
Easily, huh?
If you look at the total amounts on the previous years, will give you a better idea of what goes on as opposed to looking at the 6-month run for the early part of this year.
Where's the revenue that you generate? How come you don't ever show the revenue that's generated?
As far as for Fund 17,
No, well, just, is that where everything goes into Fund 17? All the revenue goes in Fund 17? This is just maintenance for the town?
There's just fire the ambulance in a separate budget.
We haven't gotten
No,
to
I
that.
understand they're separate budgets. I understand that. But they're both
So-
not self-sustaining. So what's confusing me is that you need this fund to operate Fund 17. So it's not clear how it shares. I mean, I understand the two separate budgets, but they're really not. And I understand for accounting reasons why you did that, but it's
it's not our,
Fire department doesn't generate funds.
right?
it should for emergency services. Absolutely. It doesn't.
We
I
don't,
think you're thinking about the ambulance revenue, Lise.
Yeah, but
We don't-
the ambulance revenue is funding this fire department, correct?
It's more, no, it's more focused on the ambulance because the insurance co-pays on ambulance calls that does come in as revenue is only a quarter of the cost of operating the ambulance.
I don't believe that.
So you hold your thought for, when we get to the ambulance, which we're just about wrapping up on here. So that you're saying that budget would be 12, would take that increase down to 12%.
yeah, if you want, I can give you this sheet if you want, or
No, that's okay. Thanks. I know what you're saying. You're saying if that 8,000 comes out.
Yep.
Okay. So anything else that anyone has, any questions or?
Just, Alex, just for talking purposes, happen to know on electricity what you're locked into for a rate?
I'm curious too.
8.29 cents per kilowatt.
What is it?
That's good.
8.29 cents.
I think mine just went to 25.
I beat you by 100.
I didn't know what you said.
8.25.
Okay. 8.29.
29.
I believe, Stuart, correct me if I'm wrong, right now, we're averaging about 900 a month for this main station-ish.
Yes, it all depends on the season and how hot, how cold it is. There's spikes in both seasons.
What's running, what's not.
But I think that's the best way possible for the supply aspect of things, and we have no control over the delivery charge. So it's, I think, the best we can do.
How long do you have?
Well, our electricity contract comes through the town,
Through the town.
finance office.
So,
We don't go shop our own Donna has strengthened numbers in terms of being able to include, all the town facilities.
It ends in December of 2025. It was a 5-year contract.
Okay,
That was a great.
we move on to the ambulance then.
Oh, sure. Before we do the ambulance, do you want Chief Snyder to do his? Or do you want me just to go right into the ambulance or?
No, unless you want to spread out your pain.
No. I just figured I'd give you off. Thank you.
Is that okay with you?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right. Looking at your narrative.
Yeah, I'm trying to find it, sorry. Yeah. So one of these. Hold on. Unfortunately, it was color coded the same as the fire, so it's sitting at top, and I didn't know. So this year we are going into negotiations with the employees union. So we did the best at forecasting what we think it may be over local trends. So there is an increase of about 3.60%. One of the things that's new in here is an administrator cost. And if you don't mind, I'll go into that once I go through the entire thing.
It's so huge, it couldn't compete a percentage increase.
What's that?
Oh, I'm just teasing.
So the total overall budget increase for the payroll side is 5.75. One thing I did not put in, because the Board of Finance or is on the bottom of figuring out what's transferred from general fund, stuff like that. The fire department is still going to pay the $30,000 from the tower lease. We did produce those numbers last year as to what the tower is and how much it generates off of that. Nothing has changed with that. There is unfortunately, no big windfall of money coming off of that.
So that's at 30?
30,000. County union, we have not gotten negotiations, but they have agreed to negotiate. Excuse me. So I do not know what that amount will be. They have committed that they will pay some money. I don't know what the figure is. We're still trying to figure out. They agreed that they should be paying something, but we just don't know what that is. So we are trying. Unfortunately, I don't have a number for you tonight.
Okay. Let's just zero in on that a little bit.
Yep.
So the only thing they've paid in 15 years has been the ARPA money
Correct, last year.
last year.
Yep.
Well, it's in the current fiscal year, 12.5. So that is about a fourth of what, when we did an analysis that we computed that their share would be. And just to refresh everyone's memory, I gave you guys the Board of Finance analysis of that. But it's based on what the 3/4 cost of operating the ambulance is after. So it's aside from all the revenue you get from medical co-pays and stuff.
So was it?
That's really separate. So the cost of running the ambulance, and this is not, I don't know if Donna has that number for now, but what we base this on, it was in July 21 that we did this. It was like right around 482 net, I think. And that was after taking.
Is that paper or packet?
Yeah, it is. It looks like this.
It should be towards the back.
All right, I
Unless
got
you
it.
scrambled it.
So the way, it's really pretty simple math. I mean, it's, they have a 10th of the population of Wellington. They had a 10th of the calls according to your numbers at the time, how many calls you did there. It was like 60. We had 6,000 and they have 600. So it's, really, that's the simplest way to look at the math. It was more complicated the way we did it.
Yep.
But of 482,000 that it costs the Wellington taxpayers to run the ambulance service because of that 3/4 cost of the service that they pay for. we figured Union's cost should be about 48,000 annually, and that is starting fresh with them when we brought it up, which was in 2021, so they're, you know, they didn't really respond quickly, and we've been doing it for 15 years with now, and the history is that I think people find troubling, and that I do as someone that is on this board to kind of look out for the taxpayer. I mean, that's our kind of our job one, is looking out for the financial solvency of the town and the way the money's spent. It's frustrating because it's not a mutual aid situation. They do not have an ambulance. There's no give back and, you know, back and forth like there are with so many of the services that all the people in this room are providing. But it's, you know, it's a one-way street essentially. And
The only difference is the money that comes into Fund 17. So if we stop going there, it's the loss of revenue in the Fund 17.
but that's the 1/4.
But
That's what I'm
then,
saying. That's like, that's separate, you know, because you're right, but it's kind of like, would you buy something, you know, invest in something that gives you that gives you a quarter return of what you could get? You know, it's not a smart investment.
Correct. We lose that revenue knowing that, we're still, it's not gonna lower our budgeting.
You know, and no one's saying, you know, the thing is though, the history of this is the agreement to include them in the Willington PSA was made by a past chief without consulting with town officials, without any town buy-in on it.
Erica, correct me if I'm wrong, we did find that the town was involved in that back in 2003, whenever it was done. The town was involved in those discussions.
go back and look.
Okay, that's not the information we had when we did this in 2021, Alex,
At least
but
that's what.
at any rate, I'm not gonna split hairs.
wait, what? Stephanie, you're right. There was in discussions in 2003.
Earlier.
It was 2008, I think, since they started it.
I don't have the paper in front of me.
They
so I-
started it, but at any rate, it doesn't pass the smell test at all. And the thing that I'm frustrated with is they gave us a little bit of their ARPA money, but they've been kind of silent. And I understand it's a new cost to them because they've kind of been doing this, but it was basically a, you know, relationship kind of deal that went up that basically put Willington on the line to pay for this service free for our neighboring town. And it's not that, I mean, you know, I would say we're pretty good sports because in, you know, Tallinn and Stafford and all this, we have like a 2-for-1 kind of mutual aid relationship with Willington offering the 2 and the other town offering the
Right.
1. And so you know, and I totally get mutual aid and rural departments, and I love that. I love when they come running for us and when we go running for them, but this is different. And so I feel like, you know, that at some point we've got to talk about how to amp this up because it's, I don't know. I just think the town's been patient enough for long enough.
They've agreed to sit at the table, I just don't have it. I don't know when that will be. So they were supposed to give me some dates and I have not heard that.
See, and that's just to sit down with us. You know what I mean? That's.
But
we
that's
don't-
your responsibility to get that information.
I don't disagree.
Is there a new selectman there?
There is.
Okay,
Well,
so,
it's the same,
Right, he's
he's
been there,
been there for the last few years.
he's been there for a few years. And
Is it Dave
not
Eaton?
since we got, yes.
still?
But
Okay,
I think if we go back to the minutes, he does not and will not come sit at the board of finance.
That's correct.
The agreement is not with the town of Willington.
Well, then,
First,
well, I guess the other way to do it, and I know that this is delicate, and Pete, tell me if I'm, you know, in left field, it's, you know, why are we still in a PSA with them?
right,
If we make money from them, the money
we
we make.
don't,
Oh, we don't.
We
we don't make money.
If it's in excess, so we took in roughly $22,000 in 1 year from the union for ambulance billing, about 10% of our gross income. The expenses, direct expenses for going to union is wear and tear of the vehicle and some medical supplies. Well under what the 22,000 in income is. If we were not to go to union, we would lose the 22,000, and your expenses would be almost identical to what you have now.
This
We're
isn't
not
making
putting
sense.
personnel or hours, because we're not going to union anymore. The insurance on the ambulances doesn't go down because we're going to union. So you lost 22,000 in revenue.
No, it does go down. Absolutely. The insurance says what is reasonable and customary. And if you go in an area that you're doing it just because you want to be a good chum, they're not covering it. Your expenses for doing this is not covered. 1, 2. The Connecticut emergency marketplace is becoming a lot more savvy, and you know that they're utilizing dashboards, and they are going to measure every single emergency run against every other emergency run based on the type of emergency. And so from this, you haven't delivered what you get for having those vehicles. We do not understand what we get. I know what I pay. I know my nursing home pays. I mean, it's exorbitant. I can see the reimbursement, but you're not sharing it. Why? It's public information.
It comes from the town. We don't keep, that doesn't even come through us. We don't get the revenue. We don't.
Well,
get
then where is that line item, Donna? Where is it?
It's in Fund 17, right? Right. It comes in through Fund 17.
So what is Fund 17's number? Can somebody tell me?
I can
Just a minute.
So while Donna's looking that up, I would just like to point out,
Okay.
so, and this is a little off topic. Our crew's going to Union last Friday. Saved the man's life because they were on scene. That should be worth something. They were on scene. The gentleman had a cardiac arrest, went pulseless in front of them. They were able to shock that person 3 times. He's awake talking, coming home. Our crews did that from our training. But it's also going there. It's not, we're the fastest ambulance to them, regardless of who else is going. We're their quickest hope. We can cancel the PSA.
So you want to call it Willington Charity Care?
Oh, come on, Lise.
Wow.
No, I'm serious. I think you guys, I've been a part of this conversation for a long time, and it doesn't make sense anymore.
Could I just ask a question though about?
Even if we stop the PSA, we're their quickest, closest ambulance. We're
Yeah,
going.
but they're really smart because they don't pay any services for it. Why are we paying
Right
services
now,
for
I can
ours?
at least negotiate with them. If I give up
You
the
mean you're the
PSA
quickest in Connecticut?
to
you're
get
the
them,
closest
they
in
can't, they can't go to Connecticut. They can't, because of the way the state laws are, they can't have Sturbridge or Holland be their next doing, their first doing.
Southbridge.
Yeah, well, they can, but it's just reimbursement nightmare. But the point is that what are we gonna do if we don't have any ambulances? Who's gonna come and take care of us? A lot of people. So it doesn't make sense. The argument doesn't make sense.
Okay.
Lise, hold on a second. Pete has a question.
I'm not sure I have a question so much as a statement. One is I believe that we should be getting a fee from Union for holding their PSA. I think a PSA is something that a town has to have somebody holding it. They can hold it themselves. They can pay somebody else to have it. They can pay us to have it. Now, I don't think that the math is so simple as to say they take 1/10 of the calls up there, they pay us 1/10, because our ambulance crews are also our first responding fire crews here. We are not the first responding fire crews to Union. So it doesn't come out one way or another. And as I understand it, the percentage collected on the insurance bills in Union is higher than the percentage collected on insurance bills in Willington.
But where is that example? You haven't given me an example. I haven't seen that.
I don't understand your question, Lisa. An example of what? Is somebody actually
So
collecting?
what I'm trying to explain to all of you is that I run a skilled nursing facility. It's 303 beds. I've been in long-term care since 2008. What I know is not what our fire department is delivering to us. And I have been going along and supporting the fire department for years. They are not being transparent. and they're snowing everybody. It's crazy. So this is on record. I'm being taped. And I am serious when I say, Peter, Mr.
Yes.
Tanaka, I am telling you, this is not the true revenue recoup. This is not what really is the picture. It's just not, it's not delivering us a true budget. And I don't know how long you wait and say, how long does somebody wait to say, oh, you know, they need to be transparent. They
I
can
think what-
gather the money, the revenue that comes in.
So the town treasurer receives every bit of transparency that she can get, comes directly from the billing agent. We
Who's
do
the
not
billing
see
agent?
MSI Services out of Suffield.
They should provide us a
They do
total.
monthly,
And how much do you pay for that service?
8% of whatever.
Uh-huh. That's right, 8%. So why didn't you get?
The town treasurer has it. It does not come to us. It goes to Lori. Lori receives the reports.
Yeah, but you don't have to get upset. The truth
You're
is
telling
that
me
we
that-
do not see a clear picture, and there's not somebody who is driving to receive and recoup every expense that we have earned. You're putting it onto the taxpayers to right-size your budget. Other places, if it was a private ambulance company, they would have somebody going after every possible reimbursement. And you're not doing that.
Just, could I just jump in? I think one of the reasons this is like, you know, that this is cropped up as a big issue on the Board of Finance is because the cost of running the ambulance and, you know, we're yet to see what the cost of running 2 ambulances would be is escalating. You know, it's quite, you know, one of the things that when we captured the figures, I mean, one of the ones that was most stunning to us was the growth in the payroll, which was tripled since 2007. So from 209,000 to almost 600,000. So I understand, but see what's happening is, especially with the imbalance, because as I recall, when we looked at, and I would love to see these figures updated, when we looked at mutual aid, there was no town around us that had the relationship we have with all of them, which is 2 to 1, a lot more calls on our end than theirs. You know, my understanding is Tallinn doesn't run an overnight shift. We answer their calls there. And they're sizable and they're certainly well off. So, you know, it's kind of an outflow. The only ones that come here more than we go to them is UConn, and UConn is a state funded outfit that we all pay for through our state
Right, that
taxes.
number has now
And it's very
gone down.
different.
That number's now gone down drastically.
Has it?
Yes, because.
Well, I'd love to see new numbers at some
You
point.
have,
So UConn comes to Wellington in very broad figures 60 times a year.
Mhm.
We go there 3. They
Right.
have enough resources like this now. We used to
Oh,
go
you
there
mean
once-
our trips have come down? I thought you meant.
no, their trips coming to us has gone down.
Because we've been in service. When we had just 1 ambulance and it was out of service for 1, 2, 3 weeks at a time, we had no ambulance. And so the number of calls that UConn was coming into Wellington was much higher because we had no ambulance at all. Now that we have 2 and basically keep 1 in service at all times, UConn is coming less because we're not missing those calls completely. It changes year by year. Stafford right now, months ago, I think we went there 30 times, but they came here 15. Some years it's much more even. Tom goes up and down, Ashford goes up and down. It changes year by year depending on the resources they have. You know, Tom, for example, we had one night that we took a call at 2 in the morning, and Ellington came over, took another call, at 3 in the morning because they couldn't get it through. It changes, but it's all part of the mutual aid system. that they're standby ready to come to us and we offer the same to them.
Sam, could you put up the 3-year look back? It looks like this.
Can somebody tell me what Fund 17 brings in?
Do you have something on that? What Fund 17 is, what's come in the last, let's take what the last full fiscal year, or do you want to know what's coming in this?
What about up to the 12/31/22? They're timely.
It's from last year. So the recovery receipts less the fees, which are the fees for paramedics and the fees for the administrators, we netted $184,000.
The fees for the administrators? Who's that?
So the net receipts,
Yeah, net receipts,
and that was 20, what did you say, 21, 22?
yes, 21, 22.
So can somebody tell me what the company that does the work recoups? Donna, do you ever say what's 8% of what you got? Do you ever see what they got so you can do a watchdog approach and see if we're really truly paying 8%?
Lori gets the actual,
Yeah, that is it.
the actual report monthly as to what was billed out and what was collected. And then every transaction that was deposited, I don't, yes. So
And why
Lori,
are we doing this? If it's such a, if we're pay $700,000 a year for these trucks and the labor and we only recoup 100,000, why are we doing it? Can somebody answer that?
Because it also puts 2 firemen in the firehouse 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
I think we need to move on because, you know, we've got a whole department here hasn't presented yet. But I just want to look, this is all the people who are presenting budgets tonight that, you know, you guys have, we've been doing this through this budget process this year. It's a 3-year look back. So if you want to see it, you know, you're gonna have to kind of come around. But basically, I'll just sort of recap it. It has, but you know, kind of the budget increases over the last 3 fiscal years, including this one. So the ambulance payroll is projected at 26.4% higher this year. Last year it went down a little bit. I'm not really sure why
Because
that
we
is.
applied an
The
offset.
60,000.
Yes,
Last year, the town applied 60,000 for ambulance payroll to offset that, instead of its usual 10,000. So that's why we multiplied it by a factor of 6. This year, that figure is without that, that multiple in there. And then,
Is that
Let's see.
also without the 10,000?
pardon me?
Normally.
No,
it's
you're
10,000.
looking, okay, so go down
So
like,
it's 10,000, 10,000, 60,000.
yes.
So
Right.
if that 26.4% is probably without the 10,000, correct?
26.4, yeah,
So it's actually.
so it's without the
closer
10,000,
to,
25% or something.
yeah,
Yeah,
20%, 22, something like that.
I don't know if we go down
I
that
can't
far.
remember, I can't do math that well, so.
I don't think it would go down that far, but anyway, that's quite a big growth. So the Wellington one, fire department side budget is, you know, was in 21, 22, it was a 29% budget increase. It went down minus 3.2% in the current year. And then it's projected at 17.4, but we took that down to 12 by moving that $8,000 cost for the propane tank out. So it's not really, it's just, the money is still being spent, but it's being spent from another place.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Does that 152 that was, or I'm sorry, the money that was reduced, that's not what was, what we're budgeted right now is not what was presented last year. We presented at 172, I think it was last year, and it was cut back to 152. So we're not, there's no way to be progressive or to buy new equipment if we keep getting cut. And I understand budgets are really tight. It's just the budget that was presented to you guys today is a bare minimum to just.
But I will say that, but you gotta acknowledge this, Alex. I mean, I think the fire department did really well in ARPA. You know, so it's not like there hasn't been activity in vehicle procurement at all.
I don't disagree.
So, and equipment too, you know, the radios and stuff, all the things we've been talking about. It's more the trend of growth there. And the Hill, by the way, had like in 21-22, 7.2% budget increase year over year, in 22-23 at 2.4%. And this year, 6% is what they're proposing. So, you know, it's just that, you know, something's got to give here, and we're trying to, you know, figure this out. But I would really, I mean, personally, I would like to see some aggressiveness with the union thing, but that's not going to solve all ills. I understand that, but still, I think getting at least closer to what that actual cost is. I mean, given, you know, what town pays nothing for ambulance service for their citizens, you know?
And
I know when I know.
We are trying, I just.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Is there anything?
Just back to the very beginning of this.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. It wasn't just, somewhere, somehow, at some time, it wasn't just Willington One making this deal. Somehow the board of selectmen was involved in it. I don't know when or how or exactly what. But
You think but that's
Yes.
not what we found.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know.
It wasn't like, it was
If
like all a secret, all of a sudden, just.
No, I think it was the current chief making the arrangement with the selectmen, if, you know.
Oh, it wasn't, okay, it wasn't like it was hidden.
And they're, you know, they knew each other because of it's all in dispatch, you know? Was it?
We have a question.
Yeah,
It was actually offering food for thought. I work for a company called American Medical Response. It's a corporation that
yeah.
provides ambulance care. Just from what I was just hearing, the hospital up until last year did not pay a dime for ambulance transfers. Interestingly enough, that is also why we're not there anymore, because we couldn't agree on an appropriate fee, or they couldn't find the funds to provide that. But that came about because of the amount that the feds are paying for ambulance transfers haven't moved, but our expenses nationwide have gone up.
Mm-hmm.
Start keeping EMTs on payroll, the expense of running the corporation, they've given us more money to keep us on because a lot of people are leaving EMS, and EMTs are a very scarce resource, paramedics even more so.
More so now, do you think?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
After the COVID stuff, everything,
sure.
you know, everybody said, nope, I'm out. If they could retire, they did, and some of them died. Some of them just moved on to a new career. Nursing is the same way. I know a lot of nursing staff has been having a hard time. They're paying $100 for travelers.
Mm-hmm.
But that's beside the argument here. I just wanted to give food for thought. The hospital as a whole didn't pay for transfer, and they were transferring 70 people a night, which is well above and beyond what we do.
Mm-hmm.
And we were only getting funds from the billing of that. Unfortunately, the equation doesn't quite work anymore, so things are changing. That I'm not putting this on either side, it's just a food for thought that
Thank you.
Just as an example for Emil's bill, Medicaid, which is our highest payer, Medicaid and Medicare, Medicaid pays a quarter on the dollar.
Right,
Medicare pays 50 cents. So we've actually been at myself personally, has been at the state capitol lobbying with this, anybody that saw the news last week, trying to get our Medicaid rates up to at least the Medicare rate, so that we can increase our funding. So we are doing stuff to try to increase the funding. At the state level, the local level, everything we can do to try to get more money in. And Jeremy's not wrong, trying to get staff is hard. Two of the largest programs, the largest medic program that's run in the state, had 7 people this year. They usually run 30. One of the larger EMT classes that's done out of Denver, canceled their fall class because they couldn't get anybody. I think they had 2 people that registered to take the class. They had canceled altogether. We draw a lot of people off of those. And there's nobody going to class.
yeah, and I know you guys are working on, with outside agencies to try to address some of this stuff, and it's a
Every
difficult
day.
time. We get that. And I'm sorry that this has gone on longer than it probably should have.
Perfectly okay.
I'm new at
And
this.
I'm more than happy to answer every question that I possibly can.
Okay,
I would just,
would you make it a point to keep in regular touch with us about your efforts in Union?
absolutely.
Because,
Yep.
we only sort of do this once a year, but, in an ongoing way, it would be great.
Absolutely.
Stephanie, I have one more question. I just want to confirm that Willington does emergency transport only.
911 only, correct?
Only, okay.
Because we're not a licensed service, so we
Got
cannot go to a hospital or nursing home and be transported.
Okay,
Right.
Completely different license.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Jim, did either of the gyms have anything or anyone else? I don't want to miss anyone. Can't see the whole group of you.
I'm good, Steph. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks. All right, let's see. I think so. So it's kind of gone out of order from the, because we have the agenda done numerically, but it's the Hill's turn. So, Tom,
Vice Jack.
you got a gang, or you doing the speaking?
Yeah, no, they're gonna chime in if they need to. This is James, our president, and Jeremy, our treasurer, who kind of very nicely put this package together for me. At this point, I'm kind of regretting not taking the offer to go first. But I'll try and make it short and sweet. He did put together this package. I don't know if you guys have it.
Yeah.
Okay, if you want, I'll go over the increases and decreases real quick through. Most of our increases are a result of supply increases, the cost for trash, things like that. Supplies, soap, paper, all that stuff, most of our increases are due to that. And a big increase for us is the cost of repairs for apparatus and such. For example, we budgeted $3,000 on ET 249, and one repair was $3,000, which the truck is our newest truck, but it's 11 years old, so it's starting to come into these expensive repairs as well as the other trucks.
How old? I'm sorry,
It's an 11-year-old.
11-year-old? Like,
So, again, it's just the astronomical cost of repairs and the labor rates and stuff like that to do those. And, along with the, cost of supplies and stuff like that. Again, I can go down to the increases and stuff, which is on here, trash removal. We have an increase, it's basically because, again, Casella took over, with those going up. Building maintenance, 24 Old Farms Road, we have an increase on that line item. It's just an aging building, it's the end of life requirement for some things, plumbing fixtures, as you can see, lighting, all that stuff, wiring, things like that. Building supplies, as I mentioned, everything is through the roof, everything from water softener to soap, cleaners, paper goods, all that stuff. Put us at an increase for that line item. Electricity, as we discussed, heat propane, we reduced it a little bit on one end, but we're up on the other. The 25 Old Farms Road, we are anticipating getting permission or permits to full-time use on both buildings on that property, so we're estimating an increase in that. So I'm just gonna keep going down the line for the increases and decreases. Any questions so far?
What are you trying to, what are you trying to do with the bigger increase in the maintenance? Are you trying to, you know, are you trying to do some of the stuff that you've been talking to CIP with, or are you that's just
Well, this is-
status
this-
quo? I mean, it's going up a third.
This budget is based on traditional use and what we're planning on using it for, you know, in the past, and we're planning on using the facilities as meetings and stuff like that, and, once you get into the building and start using it, you know, you find a lot of shortfalls with the building. You're talking about 25 Old Farms, I'm assuming. That's the
Yes.
increase. And it, you know, windows and stuff like that, we are, putting some money into it, already. But this is just anticipated use and stuff, so when we start getting in there and using the plumbing and using the kitchen and all that stuff, there's gonna be some maintenance issues that pop up.
You have that, your actuals for half a year are pretty low on that. You think they're
Again,
gonna amp
We're
up?
not in the
amp
building,
up?
we're not in the building, we're on the edge of, I just finished filling out the application again for, a use of the building, so we can dual use the property.
Mhm.
At this point, we can't use it at all, so that's why that is.
But, you know, in the current year, do you think you're gonna hit that 9,000?
I think so, yeah. Yeah, I mean, you look at traditionally, you said the expenses, currently, without using the building, are half of that, and this budget was prepared, you know, 6 weeks ago, so almost essentially halfway through the budget season. So again, if you look at 21, 22, the expense was $4,000 on that line item. That's halfway through, we're not using the building, so. That's good.
No, well, I mean, it's like underspent 5,000 in 21, 22, and you're only a couple hundred. Oh, yeah, go ahead, Jeremy.
Yeah, over at 25 Old Farms, even though we're not able to occupy it yet, we have been doing improvements. Like I just purchased a bunch of IT equipment so that we'll be able to put cameras for security and things of that nature. So we are putting money into it as we speak. So there will be further expenses throughout this year, FYI. I know I think I've spent around 1,000 or 1,200 just to get internet from our 24 location to the 25 so that we can have a camera integrator, put cameras up there so we can secure the property and avoid mischievous activities and problems, so on and so forth.
So do you feel like you know, in the second half of this year, those numbers will get close to the 9,000?
I believe so. We also have issues with the front door. It's very old and the pillars are rotting, so we may have to address those rather soon. So I do foresee us spending that, unfortunately, relatively easily. We do try to do things as cost effectively as we can, such as the moving the internet over to the building, getting the server set up over there, or not server, the switch with the power over Ethernet. I'm doing that all on my time, so we're not paying an integrator to do it. We're saving a ton of cash doing it that way. We're doing our absolute best to keep our costs as low as we can, but while achieving what we need to achieve over there. But right now, because we can't use it, it's focusing on security. And then in the following year, we don't have a cooktop in there as it is right now. They had a gas problem before we purchased it, and they removed the entire gas system. So right now, we have a stove with no outlet, and that's my old stove with rust, and so it's a placeholder at best. So yes, unfortunately, I foresee us expending cash over there to get it to a point where it's useful to the.
Is this for both buildings?
What's that?
Both buildings?
We're specifically talking 25.
All right, what,
Both buildings on the property, yes.
yeah,
I'm sorry, no.
yeah, both buildings, 25 is two buildings,
The
right?
budget, the line items for both buildings.
Got it.
So,
That was the clarification I was
right,
looking for.
but to answer, I think what you're hitting, money I was just talking about is going towards the training center.
Yeah,
which
all
is
right.
the old church.
Got it.
The
I
maintenance.
figured you changed the name.
Yeah, the maintenance
Training
from the
center.
house has been coming from, private funds, and we're not, burning the town of that at all.
Beautiful. You have somebody living there now?
Is there?
Excellent.
And then good, and they pay on time.
Okay, Tom,
Okay, you all set? I'll
Yeah.
move down to 0202, Fire Department Administration, accounting legal fees up $200. Association fees, we had a slight reduction, $100. Printer contract, like Stuart said, the contract monies, the contracts go up for the printer. So again, and also like it was mentioned previously, the insurance, our insurance rate. We do shop that, like Stuart said again. There's only a couple of vendors that offer that type of insurance, so it's limited as to where you can shop for it, so there is an increase there.
and that's for both 24 and 25.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, that's for everything we have. We are putting some money in this year into recruitment and retention, trying to maintain the volunteers. We are, it's next to an impossible task to get people to volunteer with the way things are going with the economy and things like that, COVID, all that stuff, and people don't want any part of it, so we're gonna try to put some money into that, with signs and maybe some postcards and things like that. Physical line items, we are fortunate, a lot of our physicals, the members are doing their own through their own employers or whatever the needs they have. So we've reduced that a little bit. And like Alex said, physicals are required now for the classes and training. Fortunately and unfortunately, we have a couple of new members, so as they go into training and they go into classes and stuff, they're gonna need to have physicals, and unsure at this point whether they're gonna be using their own insurances or ours. Moving down, janitorial supplies, stuff like that, pest services, of course, the obvious increases in costs for supplies.
You say pest services?
Yes,
Pest control.
Pest control, mice.
Yeah, they're
You
not
got
paying
mice in
myself.
that building?
Cockroaches, all that stuff.
They're taking myself.
Yeah.
Oh, taking mice out, all right.
Yeah. We're charging them to get rid of the mice.
Charging them rent?
Well, that would be a
Yeah,
paying
yeah,
business.
So moving down, administration, down, training and education, the cost of classes, just like everything else, is going through the roof. EMR, EMT classes are, I think an EMR classes, which is the basic minimum, is about $1,000, a little bit less possibly. And everything else is well above $1,000 for any kind of training. But that
EMT class is
$1,250 for a regular EMT class.
Well,
But again, we have a couple of new members, so we're gonna be looking at that. Expense, office supplies, like I said, that's happening everywhere. Miscellaneous good and welfare, we tried to drop that, $500. Just basing it on the historical downward trend.
mhm.
Any questions so far on that section?
No, and I like that you guys are kind of right budgeting in that big cut in your administrative, your miscellaneous.
Any little thing that we saw.
Your narrative sort of explain that.
Yeah, anything we saw, we tried to chop a little bit here and there, but like Alex said too, this budget is at this point, bare minimum, and we're getting nothing extra out of it, if we had said, okay, well, let's try some new flashlights, we're not gonna be doing that. We're using,
Tom,
No,
I can't remember whether it was you or Alex, just came up with that new state mandated cost per volunteer that just came through for.
Oh, yeah, so
What's
there's
that?
a $10 per firefighter that's gonna be sent to the town. How they calculate it, nobody knows. But it's because of the new cancer relief funding,
It's being pushed back to fund this, it's being pushed back onto the municipalities, and it's $10 per firefighter.
Where's that in our line
It's in
item?
statute,
Yeah, but I don't think we've seen it.
We haven't seen it
anything as
yet.
far as.
We haven't seen a bill yet, but are
it's
you,
in
are you
statute, I don't know.
putting that into your budget someplace? Cause you got, what, 30 guys? 40
Yeah,
guys? That's like $400.
Those
That-
are impressive heard of it, so.
All right, I actually printed out the statute, I just left it on the,
Yeah, I say, I'm only, yeah, but that is a new mandate.
yeah, and I was wondering how you were gonna work that into your budget someplace.
So, wait, is the state sending us money or?
No, you're
No,
sending
no.
them money.
No.
Yes.
We have to, yes, the municipality has to offset because of new cancer relief funding.
Oh, that's
So
awesome.
it never, it hardly ever goes in.
No, they don't send us money, we send them money. And I was just wondering where you guys were gonna fit that in your budget, whether that's under like insurances or.
Why, is that supposed to happen in
We've heard of it,
2023?
but we haven't seen it. We haven't seen it, so we don't know.
Oh, okay.
Directive, as of yet.
And we don't know if it's just straight volunteers, do they include paid staff, we don't.
All right, I'll see if I can dig that thing up.
I have it all, I can forward it to you as well.
I actually printed it back when my printer worked.
Can we move forward?
Sure.
Okay. Go ahead, Tom.
Okay, all right, moving on.
You wanna just do, I mean, unless people have questions about, some of the other, I think you're through that category. Can we just get to the vehicles and the maintenance and,
Yeah, we can certainly jump down. I mean,
unless you
So-
had something you wanted to.
no, communications maintenance, line item is down a little bit. Again, we have old radios, we have, low band radios, we're not into the, new system that we went to ARPA for as of yet. So we still have to maintain, all the items that we have, all the radios, all the portables and stuff that we have. Fire equipment maintenance, again, same thing, the expense, goes into, let me find my, line item here, fire equipment maintenance. We're looking at things like hose testing and stuff like that, which again is, a big chunk of that, probably all of that. And we already have incurred, almost half of what we budgeted last year. Vehicle maintenance.
Can I
general-
just ask you about that? In your narrative, you mentioned more frequent refills for our fire extinguishers. Is did you say that's call volume or what? Why is that uptick?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, yeah, we've been seeing, increase in our provider. We use a gentleman at Stafford who manages our extinguishers. Some of the agents, I believe, are going up in expense, for, just because everything is, I guess. But yeah, we've seen more frequent, fire extinguisher use. I believe it's partially due to the type of calls we're seeing, not necessarily a call increase.
Okay.
And a call on the scene. Sometimes a quick attack with the dry chem can get a fire out that much faster versus pulling a line, putting water on and causing further damage in the structure. So I think it's partially what we're going to and the decisions on the ground.
Okay,
The
thank you.
extinguishers include, all the buildings and stuff. We have a few inside the garage, all the trucks have to have an extinguisher. So it includes all that as well. So let's see, where are we now? Vehicle maintenance general. We kind of do it a little different than Wilmington One, where we just kind of take the, liquids and supplies out of that, DEF, fluids and stuff like that is in that line item. Our equipment maintenance and stuff, the hose testing, all that stuff comes out of a different line item that we already discussed. Vehicle maintenance for SB 149, we found our place. Again, the vehicle maintenance, we've tried to balance it out where, suggestions by the mechanics. We have, Five Star Fire, they come out, they do all our servicing and our repairs and stuff. We base a lot of our numbers, they throw out these columns on suggestions and recommendations from them in terms of the vehicle condition and stuff. So we tried to leave Rescue 149, we reduced it a little bit, knowing that, some of these other vehicles are quite significant increases. So again, there's a slight increase in, ET 149. It's one of our, it's not used as much as most of the frontline pieces, it's a second line piece. I talked about ET 249 before with the, expensive repairs. The older vehicles, the repairs are more mechanical as opposed to electronic and stuff, electronics and stuff, so, they tend to be a little bit cheaper. The newer vehicle, which is ET 249, again, a lot of electronic repairs, a lot of electronic controls on the engines and transmissions and all that. The repairs get quite costly.
That's why you're putting an extra, what, $4 grand?
Yeah,
in
and
there?
again, if you look back, we spent $9,000, almost $10,000 on that truck on only a couple of repairs. This doesn't include, I mean, things like tires and brakes, regular maintenance stuff. I mean, we got a budget for that stuff as well. These are kind of like little things that have gone wrong. We had a sensor go bad for the exhaust fluid, which in a diesel truck, it needs exhaust fluid now for the emissions. We had a sensor go bad and the control go bad for that, and that was a majority of the money there. It was about $3,000, like I said earlier, just for that repair alone. And again, now you take tires that are $600 a piece. For the back tires, we have 4. If it needs tires, and front tires, they're almost $1,000 a piece. So that, you're gonna add in all these expenses, and we forecast, and we kind of cross our fingers on a lot of these line items, and the truck, the expenses, the costs that we put in there are really kind of low in terms of, like I said, just general maintenance. But we're kind of look like we go by what the mechanic has said, and tire life and brake life, and you know, that kind of thing, what we can get through the next year. So again, move down the line, forestry 149. $3,000, we're undergoing a problem right now with that truck, with the transmission and the shifting. So again, it's not the actual transmission and shifting, it's electronics and computers. So that I'm anticipating an expensive repair on that one as well, so that will lead up the budget, I'm sure. Going down the line, the tanker, tank 149, $2,500, we kind of kept that across the board. There hasn't been anything off that when this budget was put together, but we're currently going through the annual servicing and inspections and certifications on all of our trucks, so that will probably eat up most of that right there when we get the bill for the inspections and servicing and testing of the truck. Service 149, we do have that, carrying that line item, carrying the money. We did reduce it quite a bit in the hopes that the new service will be sooner rather than later. But as we've explained time and time again, we don't have a vehicle until the vehicle is in the garage.
Right.
We've ordered one, we put money down, we committed to one, and we've got a build date on one. But again, it's in my opinion, with the way the economy is going, with the way the supply chain is going with vehicles, like Alex said, they can't even get one to replace the ambulance. I'm hoping that ours follows what's being told to us, that it's gonna show up in a month or two, and then, again, we gotta hope that the light supplier has the lights and they're not back ordered and stuff to outfit it, so. Again, we're gonna carry the,
What kind of vehicle is that? Is that like an SUV? Like
yeah,
a-
the new one, or
Yeah.
this one? They're both SUVs, one's a Ford, yep.
Yeah.
The new one's a Chevy.
Oh.
So, we're gonna carry some money on that. And hopefully that, again, we get the new one sooner than later. Moving down the line. Mobile service data. Based on, what we spent already last year, it's over budget, so we increased it a little tiny bit.
Do you have a MDT in one of your engines or in your service vehicle or something?
Well, the ET 249,
laptop like thing?
Yeah,
Thank you.
And we're going to be putting, one in, the new service truck and possibly the old service truck, if we have it on there. There's a new program that comes out, and has, put together, helps, with tracking vehicles and tracking personnel and getting us the kind of messages and all that stuff, so yeah, we're gonna be putting those in addition. So, where are we?
Uniforms.
Yeah, uniforms, so again, we carried that line item, we did reduce it last year. It's kind of the anticipation of new members, and what happens with that line item traditionally is we end up spending it on repairs or things like that on vehicles if it's not on what it's intended for, the uniforms, but basically, just like everything else, it's like the cost of uniforms, Class A uniform, Class B uniforms, stuff like that, for funerals and for parades and any other events that come up. Has significantly increased. It's probably about $1,000, I think, for one person. That doesn't include maintenance on the cleaning and all that stuff on the 30 members that we have for the uniforms. Moving down the line. Portables and low band radios, the cost is astronomical. You know, everybody can see the portables are like $3,000, $2,000, $3,000. Mobile radios are about $3,000, $4,000. So that line item can be eaten up with 2 radios. Basically, we keep it there. We are getting 800 radios, but until that system is up and running, which will probably be another year before we're into that system 100%. We do have to purchase radios that may fail or need to be replaced in terms of the UHF and the low band radios that we have currently. Fire equipment purchase, that's typically something that we hold off till about this time of year. Because again, every other line item is kind of stretched so thin that we hold off. But we do need at this point, in this year, we'll be spending, if we haven't already, Jim, we can probably answer. Pagers we bought, we do have problems with both our gas meters that may need to be replaced or repaired. And like Alex said, gear, one set of gear, we have these 2 new members, and they both need gear. That eats that whole line item up right there.
So under fire equipment purchase, you have your pagers?
Fire equipment purchase, yeah, there's.
Because you got rid of your pager line, and so did you combine it into fire equipment?
Go ahead, yeah.
So, yeah, over the past couple of years, I'm sure you've seen our line item shift around a little.
Yeah.
That's me trying to bring it more in line with what we're actually doing and trying to get a better idea of where we're going, what we're doing. One of the things I did was pull pagers because we had a very small line item for that. It was a very specific thing that we don't spend all that much on in comparison to our other communications.
Yep.
So what it is, I bundled it into comms purchase, which is.
Got it. Thank you.
No worries.
Okay.
So again, I'm corrected there, you know, the pages will come out of that, fire equipment purchase, but again, 2 sets of gear will eat that line up right there. Not to mention the gas meters and the other equipment that we need. We did need to replace a couple of, actually one, we're replacing a chainsaw that's coming out of there. And, some other small equipment, handheld equipment, which is a couple of $1,000 is not reflected there as well. So again, that line item seems like it's big and not being used. Will be gone really soon. Any other questions on,
No, and then you got your medical,
yeah.
which isn't showing up a lot except for the equipment a little bit.
Yeah, so the medical supplies, we left it the same. There are increases in the medical supplies as well. Fortunately, we don't go through as much as the ambulance, as first responders. So it's not a big reflection there. Medical equipment, we did increase. Again, it's based on, if you look at last year, what was budgeted and what was spent. We did put an increase in there Cover that historical data. And that kind of wraps it up for me, and that brings it to the 5.96% increase for the whole budget.
Okay. Commend you on your thorough narrative. There were a lot of questions are answered in that.
Thanks go to our treasurer, Jeremy, for that.
I saw. Is there anyone online, on the board who has, any questions on the Wellington Hill budget? Jim, Lisa?
I'm all set, Stephanie.
Okay,
I am as well, and I just want to say thank you for your thoroughness.
I'm good, Stephanie, thank you.
okay. Anything from you guys? Okay. Yeah.
I asked my
You just
question.
pipe up. you
I
don't
just
really-
pipe up, yeah.
you know.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but was there a time when we used to get, you know, the town grant number came subtracted from, when you guys bring in some revenue?
Yeah.
Through. I just feel like we used to see that too. Am I mistaken?
Typically, there wasn't a significant amount.
No, I know, but there was, you know, it was that grant, that's why it's called a grant, because you had your total budget minus whatever you had,
Yeah.
and then what we'd have to make up for. I don't know,
I mean, we can certainly provide that.
I just,
I don't know.
Don, am I wrong? Am I freaking out here?
Did they have grant
Yes.
money or
Yes.
revenues that showed up?
I don't remember them having revenue like from their private funds. You mean that?
I'm
Like
like
from-
your statement you used to. You can check with the town, like, just that. Yeah, we used to, right,
Would you stop?
right, like, Stuart pointed out, we used to have a stipend program that, again, would go through the town, and that maybe we refer to. It, I would just go back to the volunteers for and stuff, for any, revenue that came out of it. It was minimal, a couple $100.
So when you get grants, you budget for what is beyond the grant, what the grant covers? Is that how you do it? You don't really?
Yeah, I mean, typically grants are not, we don't get a lot of them. I think the last one, which was,
I
years.
know they sort of get you hooked and then they leave you dead, don't they?
Yeah. It's a great job of getting a few grants, but they.
Your first one's free. Yeah.
It's kind of dried up there.
The primary grant that's been available to us since 2001, I think, is the assistant secretary going FEMA. And did very well in the first 10, 12 years of that, bringing in $500,000 to $600,000 down that paid for a lot of stuff. What they've done is they've shifted probably 1/3 of that money over to hiring paid personnel in the grant program. So the dollars decreased by 1/3 available to buy equipment. And so it's made it much more competitive and sort of like the lottery, you can't win if you don't play, but your chances of winning go lower and lower every year. And so we've kind of struck out last 7 or 8 years, probably we tried to get a fire truck, we tried to get air packs, and for whatever reason, we haven't been successful, but we keep trying.
Good, because ARP only lasts so long, right? It's gonna go away. Thank you very much. Gonna move on in the agenda unless anyone has something else. So you all got Christina's ARPA update?
There was supposed to be the AED budget as well.
Oh, yeah,
That didn't get
I'm
done.
sorry. Do you wanna?
Yeah, so it's just the $6,000 for the AEDs again. That replaces the townwide,
Right.
so.
Yeah, the only question I really had about that was the new ones you want to do.
Yep,
Is
so
that
every-
about equal
Yep.
the 5 units that you're doing this fiscal year?
Yes,
and
so every year we try
Cost.
to replace, so all of the older equipment, so we're not this program is not just doing the town buildings, but it's also doing the ones, the fire trucks, it replaces everything.
Mhm.
So that we're up to date. And I believe it was this fiscal year, or at the end of last fiscal year, that we got the heart safe. We finally got our heart
Last
safe.
year.
So we,
Yay.
Fiscal year.
it was a lot of work.
That's good.
But we didn't become a heart safe community. So, we'd like to keep that $6,000 there that replaces tab batteries, updates a couple of the older machines. It's gonna purchase, out of this year's money, it's gonna, purchase a heated
lockbox for River Road Park so that it's able to stay outside all year long. In the village.
Okay,
That's all I have.
thank you. Yeah. Did you guys have anything on that? I saw that on the sheeter. Okay. Thank you very much. All of the first responders in the room, really appreciate it. Not just your budgets. So anyway, Christina's ARPA update. They are, I think it speaks for itself, but it's, they are closing out some projects that have finished. They're, you know, they've got some that have returned funds. Is there anything you want to mention from
I
that?
think we're ending we're closing in on all of the funds that we have to expend. So there are a couple of large items that are still on the table to discuss. Some of them are wrapped in and around the potential school building project, as well as the library. So CIP actually made a recommendation to ARPA to consider funding the employee study that the Board of Selectmen had put into CIP and expand it a little bit so that we could get a true needs assessment of not just the school buildings, the town office building, fire departments, but include the library in that so that we could assist them in making sure that the projects they were putting forward were complete. And that, you know, we recognize that in the absence of a facilities director in town or in any of these individual departments, that this was well outside the wheelhouse of the library board and trying to assist them in being successful and maintaining that building properly. So that one is before us. We'll be looking to go to a public hearing for that. And I apologize, I don't have the date in front of me. I believe we're looking at early March, maybe March 6th. For a public hearing on that so that we could consider possible action on that. So we're kind of winding down. There's several projects that will go out over multiple years. Again, the funds have to be encumbered by December 31st, 2024 and expended by December 31st, 2026. And we did put, one of the additional things we did was put aside in a contingency $50,000 of those ARPA funds specifically for potential needs of residents. So, for instance, we have one of the projects we funded was for fuel needs, heating needs for residents. And we're going through that pretty quick. And so we put forth a motion to put aside some funds so that we could kind of monitor and maybe make that last a little bit longer to help folks. And these different times, so.
Good, thanks for that. Any questions about that, ARPA? Okay. I'm gonna talk about the process part under new business just a little bit because we're gonna adjust the budget. The meeting agendas for next meeting because we did plan to have the elected officials budgets presented. We're going to move those to the 23rd to appear before the BOE presents because next week I want to focus on catching the Board of Finance up and having a meaty conversation about the school issue and in advance of the referendum coming in, and I want to I'm working on getting some information to you before that, but I think that the 16th is a good time frame for really kind of bearing down on some of the data that we can get. We've got a few things now. Donna's working with me, and the SBC is working on some things as well to isolate the direct tax impact and effect on the mill rate for the project itself, not trying to factor in what other increases would be normally. So they're trying to isolate it for a more accurate picture about what the school project itself would due to the mill rate, due to the taxes. And I'm hoping that they'll be here to present. I'll definitely have data, but I think, I think there'll be some people here to talk and field questions and help the board get their heads around it on the 16th, since you guys already have that scheduled. I mean, the tentative date for a referendum,
Hey, you want to talk about that process?
is that all right?
Yeah, so part of the school building project discussion is to take a potential project to a referendum. I will say, as a non-charter town, so we follow state statute, this decision could be made simply at a town meeting. It wouldn't be my recommendation. I would have difficulty supporting a $60 million project through a town meeting. So what
Plus, we haven't got a room to get them all in.
Right, so what we're proposing is a selectman initiated referendum. And so in part of that process, it's multifaceted. So it would be including moving forward a question to referendum, and in that would be appropriations for borrowing and authorization of bonds because of the size of this project. So that all happens at the same time. And so the Board of Finance's role in that is, once that project was sent to the Board of Selectmen, the Board of Selectmen accept it and then refer to a couple of agencies, and one of those is the Board of Finance, asking you to consider recommending an appropriation of borrowing authorization. And so those are the questions that are before the Board of Finance. So we had initially planned a joint meeting of the Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance, where the SBC would present their project and there be discussion on that, and then potential action. Stephanie feels that it would be best served if your board had a separate meeting and a little more of a conversation. The Board of Selectmen cannot take action to the next step, to town meeting and or referendum without those approvals from the Board of Finance. So I think from our discussions, adding that meeting next week, and then still having a joint meeting of the Board of Finance and the Board of Selectmen, where you can take potential action on Monday, the 27th of February.
So I wanted you to,
that would then move in our timeline to a town meeting on March 14th, and then that would adjourn to a referendum on March 28th.
Sam, did you print those out? The calendars that,
Yep, they're upside down, or they were upside down in front of your.
oh, okay, yeah,
Oh, thank you. Can I have two?
you may.
Thank you.
Why you want to?
Take one of them.
Why
So
don't you
this
get
is a
to-
copy of that working calendar, yeah, thank you.
You don't have a copy.
Pardon me?
I'm
He
getting one
delivers,
for Jim.
he does a delivery. What a nice guy.
So
I
what
am a
Steph
nice
is
guy.
sharing with you is the proposed timeline that I.
You want to put it up?
With
Or-
the views
Yeah, I'm looking
for
at
the
it.
school building projects process, so the things that are happening on that side of the table, and then working with our legal counsel to make sure we have all of the items necessary for the specific actions that would need to be taken through this process. And you received a memo from the Board of Selectmen this week that was, I don't know if you shared it with your.
It seemed like the cart before the horse, it's this specific
Well,
wording.
It is, that is, we need to send that referral to you, so that referral, it comes before your action. Those are the considered actions for you to consider. You hear a presentation, and that is the potential action you would take.
I'll share it with the board,
Yes.
with
Yes.
the trove of information
So the
coming
Board of
before the
Select-
16th.
Right. So the
Yeah.
Board of Selectmen received the project and then referred it both to PZC, where they took action already this week, and then Board of Finance.
Okay. Yeah, I think some of the things I'm asking for that, you know, that Donna's been helping me with and Eric has been helping me with and the SBC, our, our bond rating is a AA3 through Moody's. And just kind of to give you guys a definition for context, it's basically says we're a, what is the word it uses, Donna? A strong obligor, which sounds like a character out of, Middle Earth or something, but it's, it means we pay up. We're strongly expected that, as a town, we're an entity that pays well or pays up. And that, and then the debt limit info for the town. It's the debt limit for a school project is 59 million. That, however, is, and of course, the project is going to referendum in excess of that because it's the gross amount without waiver or any state share being taken in that, because that's the way it's got to be done legally. And because you can't apply for the state share until after it's passed in referendum. So it's the 59 million is, of course, with that, without that, so without any share in, so it would conceivably be well below that number. The limit's quite a bit roomier than we would need. This is some of the stuff that we'll talk about more. I just wanted to collect that, and like I said, the sort of isolated tax impact and some other things from the school. We always talk about it having about a $500,000 operating budget offset once, if a new school were built. And I'm asking the superintendent to give us a category breakdown kind of where where he expects that would come from. Things like that. If you guys have any questions or suggestions, I'm happy to hear them. And just looking forward to being able to focus on that. And then Jim was going to update us on the SBC. Did someone have a question? Was that you, Jim?
Go ahead.
Or Lisa? I'm sorry. Did someone say did someone have a question, or were you just unmuted?
I probably was unmuted, sorry.
Okay. Is there any suggestions now, or should we go to Jim's update and go from there? That's good.
Are you gonna do present to speak again?
After Jim Marshall gives us an SBC update, if he can.
I can. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Excellent. Apologies for not being able to be there in person. Yeah, it's been an eventful, I don't know when the last official update from Mr. McCoo prior to my time on the board here was, but it's been an eventful month or so on the SBC. There's been at the end of April 26th, there was the community forum. I think we had 36 people combined, both in person at Hall School Gym and online. Give us feedback. It was really a question and answer session, more so than a presentation. But we got some very valuable feedback on both ends of the table, many pro, many against. Many of the concerns addressed obviously were related to the total project cost. Many of the, much of the feedback in support was just related to, supporting improving the educational environment of the schools. There were a couple of students that spoke out, which was brave of them and kind of enlightening, just in general, because it takes some courage to do. But there was quite a lot of discussion, and we answered what questions we could. So it was very enlightening and productive. Then we've had two very critical SBC meetings since then, last week, last Wednesday and last Friday. At the first, the SBC presented the synopsis of the survey feedback that was collected over, I forget when that thing went live, but over a good month or two. And there were something in the neighborhood of over 200 responses. It ran the gamut as well. But in general, I think I apologize for not having access to my computer currently, but there was, the majority did support a new school construction. There was a higher support for new school on new site than there was for renovation of hall. But there was also there was input requested about an auditorium in that survey and whether people would support it. And there was, I think, I want to say about 80% of the 52% that wanted a new school on a new site also selected an auditorium, would have voted for an auditorium. Obviously, a lot of the feedback related to the project in the negative was looking for further clarification of costs, and extreme sensitivity to the cost of the project to the town, the increase in the mill rate. And, you know, that input was collected. Phil put together a good summary document, which I know is available on the SBC website, where he tried to consolidate all of the community forum feedback as well as the online survey input for unique responses and unique feedback to give a breakdown of where the public stood. So with all of that into consideration, the school building committee went through and discussed which of the two options to bring to the table at that first meeting. And after discussion and you know, feedback from each member on the SBC, the vote was 8-2 in favor of putting forth to referendum a new school on a new site without auditorium. Much of the feedback there, or much of the feedback from the committee, the impetus from the committee in selecting that option to move forward was the most cost-effective or least costly to the town of all of the options on the table, including the auditorium addition. The concerns of the two that decided not to vote was, again, concern about the cost of the town. But there were 2 negatives and 8 positives in favor of that. There was a lot of debate because of the positive feedback from all of the community members about how those that were in favor of the new school, that they wanted to see an auditorium as a part of that project. It is a significant added cost, but the committee wanted, there was some interest in the members of the committee based on the interest by the members of the public to see if there was a way of adding that as a second question on the referendum. And if this, then that scenario. The OPM was not present at that meeting. He was stuck traveling, unfortunately, and because we wanted to get clarity on the you know, the ramifications and not impact the referendum question, any bonding issues, et cetera. We held a special meeting that Friday of last week, at which point, you know, we got some feedback, and Erica can probably fill in any of my gaps, but basically we had the ability to put forth a second question, and there were only 9 people there at the time, and it went 7-2 to add a second question to the referendum for the addition of an auditorium should the new school pass. The general belief was that it was important to give the voters a chance to decide whether that was something they wanted to include in the project and at the cost. There was a lot of discussion, and I'm sure we'll get into it all next week as well, about the space waiver and what that impact was on the auditorium addition without the request for the waiver before OSCGR. There is a cost impact if the waiver's not approved, because it makes the auditorium addition because of the penalty on the area increase over what's allowed by the state. It actually winds up costing more to add that auditorium than if the waiver is approved. So Mr. Pellman, the OPM from Colliers, he did get into that discussion a little bit. I urge everybody on the board here to watch the meeting on, I think it was February 1st, last Wednesday, as well as the 3rd. They're worth, ahead of next week, they're worth putting eyes on just to get an understanding of what the thought process was of the SBC going into it. And to give you some feedback to residents of the town that, spoke up and have a, firsthand understanding of their concerns. But ultimately, yes, we are voted to put forth 2 separate questions on the referendum, new school, new site, and then a second question for the auditorium. That was referred to planning and zoning last week, as Erica mentioned, or earlier this week, excuse me. And they voted to, move that forward. And as Erica mentioned, the next step now falls to the Board of Finance. So my expectation and hope over the coming weeks is, now that we're refined to a single option, we'll be able, the SBC will be able to clarify and refine and simplify, many of the cost figures and impacts down to a single project. I hope it will help to aid clarity. And I think our discussion next week will be very enlightening, for all. I think we'll have some valuable updates and input, both from Superintendent Stevens and, the Finance Subcommittee. So that's where we stand currently. We will meet again next Wednesday before we meet here on the Board of Finance on Thursday. So there should be some additional information available on that public forum next week.
Thanks, Jim.
Yep.
I was gonna sort of offer, to you guys, and Jim's kind of already touched on it, that if you weren't able to, zoom in and watch the meeting on February 1st, it's, all the members are articulate in the way they frame the issue and the difficult decision for themselves on the SBC. That's good. And then the 3rd is good for, as far as the auditorium second question, for background. If you just kind of want to do something to steep yourself, if you haven't been able to keep up with everything, because there's been a ton of work by that committee. And the other thing is the CIP is, gotta look at that this week when we were finalizing the plan. That's the February 8th meeting of CIP that you can also see on YouTube, where we really were talking about some of the impact just in that first 5 years as far as the bond goes. That's not any kind of final view. There's presumptions in the CIP plan. You kind of do the best you can with what you know today, and you'll know more tomorrow. So, there's that framework, but it did get into some pretty strong issues, I would say, on the debate that's facing the town on this issue. So I would suggest that for you. I think unless there's anything else, we're at present to speak again. You've got all the correspondence that, except for the things I'll be sending you for the meeting of the 16th. And is there anyone want to weigh in with anything, or can we go to?
We can go.
Yeah, because I know you want to adjourn. Present to speak. Lisa?
So I just wanted to follow up on the conversation for emergency transport, Fund 17, the budgets. I was able to extract some numbers, real numbers that I want to share with the board and the people on the meeting. Medicare pays $350 for a ALS transport, or ambulance life services, ambulance, doesn't matter. You guys get what I'm talking about. And then they pay $8.25 per mile. So we are 16 miles from Bigelow Hollow to Johnson Memorial. That's a round trip. That would cost the town, that would cost the insurance company $641 at a minimum. Never mind the carve-outs, never mind the private insurances, never mind the Medicaid that he had talked to so eloquently. What I come up with 800 calls on is something close to $500,000 of reimbursement per year. So, and the other thing that I wanted to ask, just so I'm clear, is Donna, I believe you said you get all of the monies that come in and then you write the check to the billing company. Is that correct?
I believe that is correct.
So therefore, we should be able to see the revenue that has come into the town. That's public knowledge if it goes before you. So we want to know how much money gets reimbursed, what we pay for the billing services, the accounts receivable services, how much they collect on their behalf, how much they collect on our behalf. There's a lot of details that aren't coming forward here. And if it is true that the reimbursement on 800 emergency calls, they were clear to say they do not do non-emergency transport, then I'm standing by the fact that they're collecting almost $500,000 in revenue and then coming to us for $750,000 to run their ambulance service, which is in trouble in the moment because of their tax liabilities at the bottom of the revenue sheet. So they receive money from the government and they're not up to date with their liability. So there's a couple of things that are going on here that are financially a little bit upside down, and the townspeople need to understand that. The other thing is that I just want to clarify for the board and everybody in the room that hospitals do not pay for emergency transport. Ever. Hospitals do not pay for emergency transport. That is nothing new. The reimbursement always comes from your case mix, your insurance companies, Medicare, Medicaid, private pay, premium insurance, managed Medicaid, managed Medicare. And with the 8% that they want to go up on their insurance line item to pay for the labor in the town, which is very valuable to me as well, that means that insurances also have gone up because of COVID. So we need to know what the real reimbursements are. And there's a generic level that we can start with, and then you can do the carve-outs, meaning all the services the ambulance provided to keep the person alive before returning to the emergency room. So I wanted to educate the board and the town on that. And I think we have the right, I know it's public knowledge. If it's going to Donna, it's public knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you. I know there's a couple of hands up on the line. I'm gonna go to Alex, who you had your hand up to present to speak.
If it's under present to speak, I don't know if I should address that or do you want to wait for another meeting?
You're present and
Okay.
you want to speak.
I just want to.
I'm not supposed to allow a sort of engaged battle as a thing.
One of the issues is she was quoting ALS numbers. We're not an ALS service, we're a BLS service, so that rate is lower. Hindsight, we're more than happy to have the billing agent come in and meet with the Board of Finance and be completely transparent on every report that she sends to the town. Because it's not, the reports don't come to us, they go to the town treasurer. So to be called that we're not, or to say that we're not being transparent on what our revenue is or what we're getting for the calls is completely inaccurate.
Thank you. Okay, Nick, I think you had your hand up first.
Hey, Nick Tello, 49 Myrtle. I'm not in the total loop with I believe it's Wellington Hill with the church property at 24 Old Farms, but just from what I do know, it's concerning that we're dumping maintenance into that building already. I thought that was recently purchased. So again, I'm not totally in the loop there. Just seemed concerning. Some of the notes here that I had. So some of the savings, the operating savings that we've heard from meetings on the SBC, $550,000, $440,000 of that is going to be coming from salaries, according to Phil. So to me, that's concerning that you're going to have some teachers potentially being let go. Now, does that increase our student to teacher ratio and such? And if so, where does the Board of Education stand on that to be able to give their take to the Board of Finance? I think there just should be a response from the Board of Education to you guys to let you guys know where they stand. I think the Board of Finance also should ask the SBC to fulfill their charge. Again, like I had mentioned earlier, the identifying the possible uses of hall and center is in their charge, and that should be presented to you guys. The mill rate increase, I hope it's looking at least 10 years. It's something that I personally would like to see, and I know many people in the public have talked about that the 5 years that's been floated around is not enough to really understand the impact, the mill rate impact. So when that is done, I hope it's at least 10 years out at minimum with a new school with and without the auditorium. And then, oh yeah, during the hall meeting, it seems that, 26 were against either hall or new, and only 12 were in favor for a new project. So just wanted to let you guys know that. Thank you.
I have a question for Ralph. You're on the SBC, correct?
I am.
That it wasn't teachers, it was administrators, wasn't it? That was-
He didn't clarify.
He didn't clarify.
Yeah, I don't-
Okay, thank you. That I haven't been.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I can only attend so many
know that
meetings.
we were supposed to clarify, but Peter? Can you, Peter L?
You're muted.
Am I unmuted?
Now you're good.
Oh, thank you so much. Good evening. Peter Latinchich, 97 Trask Road. I want to express my appreciation tonight to the Board of Finance for wanting to have a separate meeting to discuss the impact of the proposed or referred to $68 million school project. Obviously, this would have a major impact on the town, and I think it's important for you, our folks who have the town's fiduciary responsibility, to fully understand the impact of that project and discuss it thoroughly. So I'm glad to hear that that's not going to happen in a joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen. Along those lines, I would agree with Mr. Toulis's comments in the earlier present to speak very emphatically, and encourage you to have a public hearing where the project would be explained as you do in the public hearings we have prior to our budgets every year. Just simply an explanation of the project and the financial impact on taxpayers. This gives residents an opportunity to understand the cost of the project before they attend the town meeting that would send this project to referendum. And that's how Willington has always done business as a town. We didn't have selectmen initiated referendums because we're not an autocracy. The selectmen don't send anything to town meeting. The townspeople send it to town meeting because we have a legislative town meeting form of government. So just on a practical level, the townspeople need to understand this $68 million project after you folks have discussed it as a Board of Finance. What the first selectman is proposing gives no opportunity for that. It just goes to town meeting. And I would like you to follow the past practice and have a public hearing in this process, a simple request that would allow the townspeople to understand this project prior to the town meeting. Thank you so much for your time and good evening.
Thank you. Anyone else present to speak? Jeremy?
Yes, if I could dial back.
Oh, you should give your name and.
I'm sorry,
your
Jeremy Charity,
address.
Old Mason Road. I'd like to offer 2 bits of information, bouncing back from some of the comments earlier. I did mention EMS service, transport service from the hospital. He's correct. Yes, the hospital does not pay for 911s to come in. It would be the cost of getting patients from that hospital to another hospital. That is correct. I did not mean to mislead anybody. Apologize if I did. And yes, we are a BLS service here, so the rates are a bit different. But there's also Medicare and Medicaid, which are 2 different costs. I don't know what those are. Certainly someone with an internet connection can do far better than I can at this moment. So I can't speak to those rates. And then onto the Willington Hill side for the expenses that we are putting into the large structure at 25 Old Farms Road. The building has been abandoned by the Catholic Church for several years. We are on track and trying to get it to the point where it'll be available for use, both as a training facility and as a local hall that would be available to townsfolk specifically, just like our current one is. We are putting money into it because it is an elderly building and it does need work. We bought it as an older building, knowing that the front columns need to be done. The door is aging, the facilities are old. We've had to put flushometers in there, small maintenance things that in a house would cost a lot less than what we're spending. We're having to spend commercial money. A well pump, last time I did a well pump was about $300 or something for a well pump for a residential house. The well pump broke at this facility a while back, I think the last fiscal year. I believe it was like a $1,200 to replace same as is material. So I do appreciate the concern for putting funds into that building, but we went into it knowing that there would be some need to invest into it in order to A, maintain it, and B, bring it to a state that the town can make use of it in its current form. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Ralph?
Ralph Tillis, 47 Village Hill Road, just thinking about the meeting next week and the public hearing that I'm recommending. All of the public outreach heretofore prior to February 1st had been with a Chinese menu of projects. There were 4 basic options, times with a waiver, without a waiver. This clouded financial issue in the minds of a lot of the public. And I mean, once you see too many options, you just kind of, your eyes glaze over, roll back in your head, and you don't really comprehend. This is why I was suggesting a public hearing once this board understands the exact, as much as they can be exact, because it won't be. We won't know what this building costs until it's done. That's the reality of it all. We won't know what the waiver is for another year. So let's at least look at the numbers we do have for two options. School without an auditorium, school with an auditorium. And how it's financed. We all know we're gonna float a construction loan in the beginning, and then we're gonna pay off the interest on a construction loan with another loan, a bond. It's a way to finance these things from a municipal perspective, I get that. But I think that the public needs to understand the mill rate impact as we pay down that debt, because it is substantial. I have run the numbers out, 23 years, they're not pretty. This board needs to understand them. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Oh, we've got another one. Alan Ayers. Could you unmute yourself?
Yeah, hi, Alan Ayers, 38 Timber Lane. I just really wanted to come on because I know like a lot of the same people keep showing up every meeting and saying the same thing over and over again. And they're all saying, they're all kind of like the same like. I've been watching, you know, some of like the 56 videos over 2 years from the SBC. All this information's been available. They know it's available. There's barely any views. The Wellington Republican Town Committee, they want to stop it. They want to stop it anywhere they can. We voted for you know, the people spoke up. They filled out the survey. They want the new school. They want it to go to referendum. Not only do they want a new school, but the majority of those people want an auditorium. To suggest that those people don't actually understand what that cost is, it's kind of insulting. One of the first things I did when we started looking at the new school is I looked at what the mill rate was going to be. I looked at my own assessment and I calculated what the difference would be in my tax. And that's my responsibility. You know, they keep throwing up, you know, specific, like the full $68 million. It's a scare tactic. Obviously everybody's cost is going to be different. It's going to be based on the mill rate and your assessment. Not, you know, we're not all paying the same amount. I think most people will understand that and they know what their cost is going to be. I can read right here on the Wellington Republican Town Committee, which I'm not certain who runs that, but it might be somebody in the audience there. It says 80% of the speakers at the forum were opposed. That's not true. You just heard that. Also, the majority of the people that filled out the surveys were for it. It says that we're going to have a 60% increase in property tax over the first 4 years. That's clearly, the math is just clearly wrong on that. That's just misinformation. So I don't know how many times we have to like pause and try to explain, you know, this information over and over again when the people, ultimately it should just come down to the people to vote. I think people understand this. I think at this point, if you haven't watched these 56 videos that contain all this information, like if you look at some of these videos, it's like 80 people have watched these videos and those videos aren't specific. So like if I have gone 3 or 4 times to explain to somebody, this is where, you know, Scott was talking about the space waiver. That counts as 4 views. You know, it's not individualized. So, you know, because people aren't participating, like you're, you know, I think at this point, if you haven't participated, you haven't watched the videos, you haven't looked at the information, I mean, I'm sorry, but like, it's just adding more delays, to be honest. And I think we'd have to move forward and we have to have a referendum and the people have to vote and decide yes or no, and then we move from there. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I think that's everybody. I'm not seeing anymore.
Unfortunately, I'm not on welfare, so can we adjourn?
Are you moving to adjourn?
Yes, I'm
Are you
moving to
sure?
adjourn. I am absolutely.
Is there a
positive.
second? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all.
Good night, everybody.
All right.